stuff that you never want to do.
Yeah.
For the many hats I wear. And then we try and record, but we put out a podcast every other Wednesday.
It's awesome.
So every other week we try to get out. So we basically 25 to 7 guests a year.
That's
ish.
awesome.
And
That's cool. Yeah, that's really good. No, I've been enjoying it.
And we've been fortunate to be very, very consistent. Both Dwayne and I are like, as long as we stay on the street, we're good. Right?
Yes.
When you drop it off once, it's like,
Agreed.
it just starts to snowball.
I always say the habit to do something and the habit not to do something.
Right.
You know.
And now like we're right on the cusp now, inside look at the Tree Actions podcast. Is like, I just did it recording with Pete Prayman.
Oh, nice. Oh, yeah.
And Dwayne, his son is getting married this week. And they're all out in BC, and you know how that's like.
Yeah.
His oldest son's getting married. It's just, he's all over the place, which is great.
That is, yeah.
So anyway, Dwayne couldn't make podcasts, so I had to do it myself, which we've done before, but now we're like, we need to record it somebody else, or we're gonna have a gap here in a week or two.
Yeah. We had just real quick, because we're kind of getting a rolling start, which we do quite a bit, and we're gonna get into a little bit more of an intro, but just sitting down with Tony Tressel. Tony's resume, I mean, I have some notes here, is pretty incredible. You know, from trainer, tree person, author. I mean, there's a lot, military service, there's a lot to unpack. And right now we're just talking about his podcast with Dwayne Newstater called Tree Action. So this conversation that you're currently listening to is about that podcast, which I discovered a couple months ago and have been listening to. So yeah, appreciate you sharing
I
that.
can tell you the story about that, because there's a story to everything. Right?
Yeah, of course.
So
That's why we're here, you know.
A good friend of mine, Tim Reynolds, wonderful arborist out of Connecticut.
Okay.
You've probably met Tim. Yes,
His name sounds
at
familiar.
ITCC. His brother Matt, great arborist. Tim's just a great guy. He's like, one day he's like, Tony, we should do a podcast. And I'm like, yeah, Tim, why? Because he knew it, and I had, just because of doing the training design and stuff I'd done, I self-taught myself how to record, how to do video stuff. I just self-taught it, right? So it was something I knew how to do and had the equipment to do. So we decided, yeah, Tim, let's do it. And Tim's got a lot of interesting friends. He spends, just a very interesting guy. So we started, I think never truly gave the podcast a name. We might have done 6 or 7 episodes.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the first, maybe the 3rd or 4th guests we had on was Dwayne.
Oh, cool.
And Dwayne got on, and that's when this was all about 4 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And Dwayne had just finished up a recovery program.
Okay.
I'm back, with alcohol and addiction problems.
Okay.
He's very open about it.
Yeah.
And we basically had it, and when Dwayne got on, this was the first time we did anything like that. He's like, that was awesome. He says, Tony, we should do something. And the original idea started out with Arbor Canada was to connect some of the alumni instructors that aren't on full-time anymore with the younger instructors.
Yeah.
So the idea was to, because when Dwayne and Nancy started at Arbor Canada, there's a number of instructors, they're still around,
Mm-hmm.
And they're still super valuable and have a lot of advice. The idea was trying to connect those two. So the original idea was let's start a podcast to do that. And then we started thinking about it a little bit more, and we even had some of our very first guests, like Thor Clausen, is a former Arborcan instructor.
Okay.
So it started on that path. We realized it's like, this has just got it's not just to connect instructors, it's just fun to talk about. Like it's good. I think everybody would enjoy this.
Yeah.
So we just opened it up.
Yeah, that's
Like
awesome.
wider, and it's been great. And that's the original start of it. I was interested in doing the podcast and helping out. One, because I like the technical end of it. I enjoy putting those things together, and it was a good skill builder for me at that point. The other thing I found is I made it an opportunity for me to learn how to listen to hear, not listen to respond, because I think it was a lesson I needed to learn.
Mm-hmm.
And so I forced myself to do this. So sometimes, people say, well, Tony, you don't say a whole lot on the podcast. That's because I'm listening to hear you.
Yeah.
Because I had a bad habit of you'd be halfway through your sentence and I'm already thinking, I'm not listening to the second half of your sentence anymore.
Yeah.
I'm listening, I'm trying to think what I'm going to say to them. So the podcast has forced me to slow that up, which is ramifications have gone throughout.
Absolutely.
My course. Now it's kind of funny though, I get in social situations and I think sometimes people think I'm kind of stupid. Because they ask me something, they'll say something and I'm just sitting there going,
He's contemplating.
and then maybe I answer them, maybe I don't. I don't feel the need to answer them.
Yeah.
And so, sometimes looking at me. But it's okay. I find life is easier if people look at you and think you're the dumbest person in the room.
Yeah.
Life is way
Yeah, you get
easier.
underestimated, What was, there's an old quote about that. It's something about, man, I don't know it. I'm going to butcher it, but I know you might know it. Something about better to be quiet and be thought of that way than open your mouth and remove all doubt.
Yes. I think it's about basically,
Better to have people think you're stupid by being quiet than open your mouth.
like the fool.
Yeah.
Like it's okay to be a fool, but if you let them know you're the fool, it's the problem.
Correct. So that actually spins off to a kind of a cool question, I think. Because I agree.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think, because there almost is to some degree, and I'm curious to know if you align with this. They say like, you know, a lot of us are visual, tactile, sort of ADHD, kind of high, mind is going a million miles an hour. Do you think that, because I know in my life, I do think that propensity to talk over people is my mind is racing out ahead of what you're saying. And I'm thinking to myself, if I don't respond now, I'm going to forget what the heck I was going to say. So I'm wondering, do you think that's a function of personality? Because it sounds to me, the podcast has done the same thing for me, by the way. And reading Stephen Covey's book, one of his 7 habits is seek first to understand, then to be understood. And I think that listening skill, and this bleeds over into leadership, which I know is a huge topic for you. I went on your website, and I know you do some leadership work, which is amazing. And I'm just curious if you feel that, number one, the propensity for us to talk over each other, where does that come from? And then 2 being, well, you kind of hit on it, was that skill, that listening skill. Because that's valuable for people in leadership positions within their own companies.
Yeah, to answer the first part of the question, I think the propensity just comes from habit.
Okay.
I think there are personality types that just want to be domineering.
Okay.
Just want to,
Yeah.
they'll just be that way. I think most people just do it out of habit.
Okay.
And when you think about it, if you've ever learned another language, right? One of the best ways to fake being fluent when you're not quite fluent is mumble at the end of your sentence. When you think about it, like we're all very fluent in English. Like you're you're not listening to every single word I say unless I separate it out like that, which is another technique. So you're taking things from context and you're filling in the blanks, which is fine, right? And I think that we fall into the habit of, we start to engage our own thoughts verbally or whatever before that happens.
Yeah.
So for me, that act of slowing up is just simply, it's a discipline.
Yeah.
Right. It's a way to force yourself to slow down, no different than, say, meditation, right?
Yeah.
Or something to force yourself to slow down. And like any habit or skill, it can be developed and skilled, and developed into a skill. And like I said, sometimes, like I said, people can feel like, he's kind of slow, right? Which is fine, other people think. But for me, it's just been invaluable, right? Yeah. And it led well into not only my personal life and the way I like to think, because I am not a person to want to make rash decisions, right? I've learned the power of the pause or the separation, right?
Yeah.
And Viktor Frankl's, between stimulus and a response, there's a space. You can choose your actions. So I've always been very big on that. This just allowed me to manifest that and to practice it and to see it, right? So it's just like when you're shopping for a new blue car, like you see blue cars everywhere.
Oh, yeah.
Never saw them before.
Yeah.
Right. So when I started practicing this with the podcast and failing and practicing and back and forth, then I started to see it everywhere.
Yeah.
Right.
That's cool.
That's how it is.
So how do you think that skill translates? Because let's break it down for the listeners a little bit, because it's fascinating really when, like on the crew level, so you have a foreman and maybe there's a few workers and this person's trying to, sort of corral or instruct, teach, lead. How do you think that ability that we're talking about can translate into a leadership position sort of in that dynamic?
Well, a number of ways. One, just from the obvious, like you have to listen to your people. If you're not listening, then so it makes you a more fair leader. I think from a perception standpoint, one of the most powerful things you can do as a public speaker, and I equate leading a crew to public speaking, because you're standing in front of people. It doesn't matter if it's 3 or 3,000. Techniques are the same.
Okay.
Right? As a public speaker, one of the most powerful things you can do is get up on the stage, sit in front of that mic, look at the audience, and scan around and don't say a word. It's very, very powerful. Right? And whether you know what you're talking about or not, people, it assumes a certain amount of authority. So it's a piece of advice I give to speakers and leaders in those situations, right? Now, granted, different contexts, different things, but by basically going up and like giving your crew time to speak, you're going to hear their opinions and judgments, which is valuable. It might be stupid opinions, I don't know. It doesn't mean you have to follow them, but you should listen.
Right, but at least they'll get them out.
Right. And it also presents an air of authority, which I think is important, right? Because ultimately, as a crew leader, the buck has to stop somewhere, and that's you. Right? You know, good leaders don't take credit, but they take the blame. Right? And that's another topic. But I think it allows that open communication. It also portrays someone that's thoughtful and will listen, which is important, right? Because a lot of times certain leadership styles that don't allow for input never get input because there's no place to put it.
Wow, that's a gem.
We play.
Yeah, that's one where you pause after and let it sink in. And it's funny because I can relate to, because I my natural bent is to kind of fill up a room.
Yeah.
Like with words. So I've had to learn that skill and I'm practicing it constantly.
Sure.
Even to the point where Rick and I have talked about speaking, and that has helped me with the cadence of language. So if we're talking and I'm conversational, that's going to be at one pace. If I'm speaking, I can just slow the cadence down. It's not noticeable by the people listening, but it's helping me thought gather, contemplate what I'm saying, and use those sort of pregnant pauses for effect and communication. So I 100% agree. You were going to chime in with something there?
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot.
It's meaty.
So the part that I really enjoyed that you said was if we were speaking another language, and correct me if I'm wrong, but like if you were to speak another language or try to learn it, me listening to you, I would not be thinking about what to say because I'm learning the language, so I have to wait for you to finish. Right?
Exactly.
Okay. My experience growing up deaf, that's the whole problem that I had. I still challenged, but better, but I could never know where you're going with what you're saying. I had to wait till the end, and I only got parts of it that I would put together as a whole, and then proceed to respond to what you said.
Exactly.
So that's what I've learned is like, literally, I remember being in speech therapy, it's a diagram of listening and speaking, and then you have the arrow. So like, the arrow will be like, this person's speaking, this one's listening. This one speaks, this one listens. And it's the only way communication actually works. It doesn't work in any other way, right? But the key point to add to that is the only way that you can actually listen is to listen to the end of what somebody says. And that I just thought that's something that if the listeners miss that's key. Like just pretend that you don't know the language that well, you have to wait until the person's done speaking. And then I would like to think that naturally creates a more harmonious response as opposed to what you said. I need to get this out now, so hopefully I don't forget.
Right.
Kind of with that. Then the second part is everybody's unique in their leadership positions, but I'm in a municipality, and this is not a knock on it, but the municipality are very known for not production, because there is no production aspect to it. So you're going to get different characters that are going to show up and have a different mindset as far as what teamwork really means. So when you're speaking, everything you said, believe you spot on, love it. But I think the question would be like, what do you, when you have challenges of people not wanting to listen to you, and not wanting to wait till you finish your point, and not wanting to jump on the bandwagon as a team. Is there something that you kind of learned over your career of doing this? Have you learned how to navigate that? Or is that just part of the experience and not everything is going to work out the way you want it to?
Yeah, that's working in those types of environments, municipal environments can be tough, right? Because oftentimes you're not depending on the environment you're in and the culture that's built there, sometimes you're actually rewarded for not working hard, right? And you're ostracized for working hard.
Yeah.
And I don't have a secret sauce. There's a reason that I've not worked in those environments, and it's because it would just drive me nuts. I just couldn't do it.
Yeah.
It would just get to the point. When it comes to, and if you're in a leadership position and you don't feel people are listening, as long as there's a level of respect there, you just have to learn how to change your style of communication. Right? If there are some people that are just not going to listen no matter what you say, right? In the private sector, I fire those people, right?
Thank you.
Public sector, you cannot, right? They tend to get channeled elsewhere, out of your way, hopefully.
Yeah.
Right? But in a situation where the culture doesn't build, what I've learned through leadership, and mostly from training, is what we call the 3 C's, right? So people, generally speaking, painting with a big, broad brush here, I'm not a psychologist, but people crave, they want to be seen as competent, they want to be seen as connected, or they want to be seen as, and the 3rd C is escaping me right here. It'll come back to me when I'm
Yeah, that's good.
They want these things, but everyone will tend to have a preference, right? I hate when I'm not seen as competent. Whether I know what I'm doing or not, I don't want to be seen as incompetent. I do crave connection a little bit, I do like that, but I'm fine on my own. Right?
Yeah.
So for me, messages that basically, if you insult my competence, we're never going to communicate.
Interesting.
It's just not going to happen,
Yeah.
right? Or if you're constantly breaking that connection, right, making me feel like an outsider, we're probably never going to communicate. So you might have to change your communication style, just like people are audible learners or visual learners. We're all a blending of all 3, but when you can find that thing. And the way you can identify this is the person that wants competence, like when I'm doing a training course, you always have that one student that's like, you ask a question, they're raising their hands, right? They want one of 2 things. They want to be seen as competent, or they want to be connected to you, right? Now, if I take a break, getting a drink of water, and they come up and they want to talk to me afterwards, they probably want to be connected, more so than competent, right? The person that sits in the back, we call them the prisoner, got the eyeglasses on, just hanging out there, right? They want something from you, but you just got to find out what that is. So, to get back to the basic question, as long as there's a level of respect there, that they want to listen and try, some people just aren't.
Yeah.
But if you can break down those barriers and find out what that want or need is, right, and then you can start to change your communication style to meet them where they're at. Does it always work? There's no. If I had the silver bullet, I'd have written the book,
Yeah.
right, and be wealthy, and it'd be awesome.
Yeah, true, but
But
yeah.
it's not a silver bullet, and in those environments, it is very, very tough. And I haven't personally experienced it because I know enough about myself and my blatant disregard for most authority to not want to be in that position.
Yeah.
But I have known people that have tried and have failed, and they just cannot work effectively in that situation.
Yeah.
Like they just can't do it.
Yeah. I think it's invaluable for the listeners just to understand, because it's a fundamental question often at all types of interactions about people. People are the solution and people are the problem. So this sort of, this high level, and I think I'm curious if you concur or not, a lot of it really starts with our own self-awareness,
Oh, absolutely.
right? Like it's a little bit of soul searching, stylistically, who are we? Are we listening effectively? Are we asking good questions? Are we engaging? It's a little bit of like the Jocko Willink philosophy of like extreme ownership, right? Like we really are the ones who have to own the solution. Man, there's so much in what you said, because ultimately it falls on us. But I want people to understand that when like someone's driving in their truck, maybe they're listening and they're saying, I have a problem with this individual, this person on my team. And there's a whole breakdown we could do on that. But the point being that it really starts with us, right? Like our own self-reflection on leadership style. Are we communicating clearly? And I'll share a quick, brief story, and I've shared it before actually here, but I think it's pertinent. We have a gate outside the shop. It's a horse gate. And at night, I put a chain on, I put the padlock through it. Well, on the first level of rungs, it's clear and I chain it and in the morning I undo it, pull it off. On the second one down, there's this little keeper for a small chain, but I have a big chain. And if you put it there, the chain link gets stuck. And it's kind of a pain in the rear end to get it unstuck. So I was having an issue where a couple of my guys, last one out was locking the gate. This is a couple crews back. And I would get in the morning and I would go to unhook it and it would be stuck because they put it in the wrong place. And it started to frustrate. So I come in with this freaking thing because I'm trying to connect dots. And I paused one day, sort of self-reflecting, and I'm like, did I ever actually tell them what I wanted? It's very simple. Did I say, hey guys, whoever's locking, when you lock, do me a favor, put it on the top rung. I mean, it sounds like such a simple thing, but here I spent 4 or 5 days in my own frustration because it wasn't done how I wanted. But I never took the time to clearly communicate. And so in the morning we had our little brief and I was like, hey guys, quick little housekeeping thing, do me a favor, this. And it was done and I'm like, I'm the problem. So I think a lot of times it's very easy as humans to think the problem is out there. And there are situations like you said, and I'd love to circle back to that where you said I'd fire that, like I would move that person off my team. Well, you might not have the luxury.
I definitely don't have
Right,
that.
but in some degree, I've also rolled through some people. So you have a lot of folks in our industry hurting for help. So you have a body who can drive a truck to the site, but maybe they're a person that's very difficult. Do you think it's better for them to suffer through with a bad person? Or I'm interested because these are like real problems.
Same thing, but I guess a good way to add a little bit is how much should an owner, crew leader, coworker invest in communication styles of trying to figure a way to connect before you finally make that decision. Before, you know what I mean? It's
Right.
not going to work. You know,
Yeah, no, that's
I
great.
think that's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it's going to be highly individualized, right? Which is that I can answer every question with it depends.
Yeah, of course.
No, but I think that eventually you have to draw a line, right? There's certain non-negotiables that we found in tree work with tree care companies. And my brother's taught me a lot of this.
Awesome.
When it comes to showing up on time, that's non-negotiable. If you're 1 minute late, you're late. In fact, in my world, if you're not 10 minutes early, you're late. But that's right. But when they say the workday starts, and there's 2 reasons for that. One, when you're 1 minute late, but you're on a 3-man crew, you're really 3 minutes late. And actually, you're 30 minutes late because our time cards don't go down to the minute, they go to the half hour. So now you're an hour and a half, right? So those things add up.
Yeah.
The main reason is, and one of my mantras that I learned through many, with train the trainer thing like that, is how you do anything is how you do everything. There's no way around it, right? You can change and you can alter yourself, but how you do anything is how you do everything. So if you can't simply show up on time, how the hell can I depend on you to perform a task that could kill somebody else or yourself or cause severe property damage?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I'm asking you to show up on time.
Yeah.
This is not that difficult.
Yeah.
Now I get it, people are late. I've been late.
Sure.
Right? So there's certain non-negotiables, that's one.
Yeah.
Any type of hardcore safety violation that's repeated.
Yeah.
Can't do it. I'm a big no one-handing chainsaws. And probably some of your listeners are going to be like, oh my God. But we don't have to get into that. But it is a rule at the companies that I work at that you don't one-handed chainsaw. We have our reasons, right? You get one warning. The second warning, I don't know how good you are. You're gone, right? There's certain non-negotiables. And that's one end of it. And that reason is simply because you might be the best arborist in the world, but if you cut yourself, 1, you're not working, and 2, it affects all of us. Right?
Yeah.
It's money out of my pocket, and it's money out of everybody's pocket.
Yeah.
And I got to do your damn work, right?
Yeah.
So the other part of that then becomes, so there's certain non-negotiables, right? And those are going to differ for whatever.
Yeah.
The reason that those rules is another mantra that I live by is the tighter the rules, the higher the performance.
Interesting.
Right? So you have to have a certain performance standard, and those non-negotiables are our performance standards, right? Now, if somebody, if I come out in the job and they're making a chainsaw cut and they don't got their chaps on, we'll have a discussion. I see it twice, it's gonna depend a little bit, right?
Yeah.
But most of the time, because it goes back to my original thing, is how you do anything is how you do everything.
Yeah.
There's probably more than other things, right? And I equate it to this, when I show up on any tree crews job site, just to check up on them, first thing I look at is the back of the chip truck. I look at the chips. And you can tell if the chipper is sharp or not by looking at the chips, right? And if the chips are dull, there's a lot of problems on that job site. If the chips are good because the chipper's sharp, because how you do anything is how you do everything. So if you can pay attention to the small details, I know you're getting the big ones.
Yeah.
Right? So then what it boils down to, then it becomes really a cost-benefit analysis, right? So you might have somebody that is young, but promising. Maybe they get a little more.
Right.
If anything, in my past as a leader, I've been guilty of giving people too many chances.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But I think I'd rather be that person
Mm-hmm.
than to not give somebody enough of a chance.
Yeah.
Right? But I'm also the guy that will fire you if you cross one of the non-negotiables.
Yeah.
You know, I don't see a dichotomy there. I don't see a juxtaposition.
Yeah.
And like you said, it was a great point about expectations. As a leader, it's called leader. We've always just called it leadership intent. What's the intent of this? Right? If they don't understand my intent, how are they supposed to perform? Because they don't know what my expectations
Yeah.
are.
That's fair.
And for the non-negotiables, we make those very clear.
Yeah.
For some of the other things, you're going to have to go back and forth. So then it really becomes a cost-benefit analysis. Right? Although what I've said is most people, when you put them under enough pressure and perturbation to fit into your culture, they either fit or they don't.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
And we've had to let go of some good arborists, some good people, because they just didn't fit.
Yeah.
They might be fine at the tree company down the street. I'm not saying that tree company's better or worse,
Yes.
but it's different.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah. No, that's really
That's really
valuable.
good. Yeah.
It's valuable.
Really good.
It is because and as Tony's speaking through it, I'm overlaying it to my experience and just even recently having a few guys that were they came from another couple different operations, again, good, bad, and different, whatever, but from a culture standpoint, safety culture, we're having to negotiate almost daily. Do I have to wear this hard hat? I'm just raking up now. It's a non-negotiable. I just have to make this one cut. I gotta walk all the way back to the truck for the chaps. Yes. And so after 3 months of daily to where I have a talk with a person the day before, and now I'm out on a project working the bucket, taking some deadwood out of trees, and he's like, I'm out of your drop zone, can I take my hard hat off? Like,
That sounds like a municipal.
so in my mind, I'm saying, I'm like, this will never work. This is never gonna work because this is a non-negotiable. So why am I legislating this on a daily basis? This person's just not a good fit for our culture, and we moved on, so.
And what I found is when you don't pull that trigger early enough, it hurts the whole team.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because now you're that leader that you're this way with these people, but this way with this person.
Yeah.
And that's never a good,
No.
not a good fit.
No. And it's wild because there's actually some tension that exists. That's actually great. And for a while early on, I did that too often where I hung on too long,
Right.
and I hurt the morale of the team. But there's a tension that exists sometimes when you have someone say come from another culture and you're trying to integrate them. So you're thinking, okay, they're going to come around. And it's interesting that like that timeline and the other guys, the other people on the team are kind of like, what's happening here?
Right.
And it's interesting. Sometimes you'll let that person go and you'll see the morale kind of bump. They're like, we were wondering when that was going to happen. And you're like, wow, they've already seen it.
Yeah, I've experienced that too, and it's like like I said, in the past, I've been guilty of probably hanging on a little too
Yeah.
long or not pulling the trigger soon enough.
Agreed.
But like I said, I'd rather be that guy than pulling the trigger too soon.
Agreed.
And some of the tougher conversations I've had with people, especially younger people, they really want to do, tree work and production arboriculture for a career, but I'm like, it's not for you. Like, unless you make some serious changes, you're gonna end up hurt or dead.
Yeah.
Like, go get an office job somewhere, man. Like, and there's nothing wrong with that.
No.
There's nothing, and most people come to realize it on their own, because it's a hard dollar, it's not for everybody.
Correct.
Right? And understand too, my perspective comes from, I've never had a job like where you just go in and you punch widgets and you walk away. I've never had a job. I've had lifestyles, right? And I've only had a couple of those, right? You know, I was in the military. I've been trooper, right? Everything's been a lifestyle for me. And then when you're living a lifestyle, I think there's no reason not to pursue excellence. And if you're not pursuing excellence, then you're really not my guy. You know what I mean? Like if you just want to come in and work, that's fine.
Right.
But understand, I'm going to push you the way I push myself. Right? And if you don't like that, then we either have to figure out how we're going to work together and then move on. And some of what you're saying, I am hypersensitive to because growing up or working with a family business. It's tough, right?
Yeah.
You know, it's hard. Well, my father was involved with the business. It's my brother's business. My brother started it. My dad had a long career in arboriculture, but you know, ended up working for my brother.
All right.
But it's my brother's business. And I started working with him mostly just because he needed help and I needed beer money, right? So when I started, it took me 7 years to figure out that my brother has to make business decisions, not personal decisions. And they're two different things. Once I figured that out, our working relationship got a lot easier, right? Because, you know,
So how many years, I'm sorry to interrupt, but how many years ago was?
So my brother started Arborist Enterprises in 1991.
Okay, cool.
That was the year I got out of the military service.
Okay.
At that point, it was just him and another friend of his and a friend of mine, and they didn't have a lot of work.
Yeah.
I'd help them out doing traffic control. Hate it to this day. You know, I got other jobs just in here and there. I didn't want to be an arborist, having grown up with it. I'm like, I'll find a real job somewhere. But when I got out of the military, just through different aspects of my personal life, I needed to stay really busy.
Yeah.
And I did have a job, and I'd help him out a little bit here and there. I also realized that I needed to go to school pretty quickly, or my benefits would go away. So my brother gave me the opportunity to go to school and then have a job when I got out of school. So I just did horticulture, never intending to do it. But then eventually, I just never left. You know, I stayed there. So I still work with Arborist Enterprises. I do all their safety and training on a subcontract. Been that way for 13, 14 years now, but before that I worked off and on through college. So from pretty much like 93 to
Wow. That's awesome.
Right. But I've never known a world without arboriculture in it.
Yeah.
I've never been on the outside looking in. Because my dad moved into arboriculture the year I was born from a forestry background because it's where the job was. I'm the youngest of three. He needed a job that paid bills.
That's awesome. So if I could, I'm gonna, at first I wasn't gonna do this, but I'm gonna because I think it's kind of an interesting thing. So on the Tree Actions podcast, your leadoff question is always the first experience with the tree. So I'm gonna turn the tables on you and I'm gonna ask you that and then maybe just segue into your early career because I'm interested to find out how, when, why, a little bit about your dad and where he worked and that. So if you can unpack a little bit of that.
Sure. And the military part.
Yeah.
Because I feel like the military obviously was the prequel to the tree lifestyle.
Sure.
So, yeah.
Well, the question, and I've had to answer this a couple times, so the question
Okay.
we always ask is, and Dwayne phrases it better than I do, Senator, is when's your first memories of trees affecting your life or having influencing you?
Yeah.
And quite honestly, I don't have one single memory.
Okay.
Right? For a couple of reasons, like I don't have a lot of memories before I was 8 years old, for various reasons. I don't remember.
Okay. Yeah.
For a couple of reasons, but like one of the things the podcast showed me, and people answering that question showed me, is how kind of unique my life, my upbringing around trees was. Because my father has a forestry degree, worked in forestry, he was always into Boy Scouting and all the things outdoors. My father would never say, "Hey Tony, go stand by that tree." He'd say, "Go stand by that white oak. Go stand by that red maple." They've always had names for me, right? So I don't really have one single moment where like trees affected my life.
Sure.
What I do remember is a point in my life, and this is later on, this is probably the early 90s when I'd finished up school. I have a degree in philosophy from Penn State University. It's a whole nother story, right? And you a certain point in your life, and I'm older now, of course, I'm late 20s, so I'm not your typical college graduate. I had a lot of life experience behind me. I didn't start college till I was 25. And I graduated, but I do remember thinking, like, at some point you gotta make a decision, right? Or you'll just be all over the place, right? And this and that. The grass will always be greener on the other side of the fence. It's a trick of lighting. And I'm like, and I did decide, you know what, like, arboriculture, it suits my needs. Like, I need to work hard from a mental standpoint. I need to go home tired at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Right? And I enjoy it. I enjoy the challenge of it. And this is a great opportunity for me to help my brother build that relationship. Because while my brother and I, like, we weren't ever really close.
Mm-hmm.
We were brothers, but we weren't tight.
And where do you fit in age-wise?
I'm the youngest of three, right? So my brother Ben is 5 years older than me. We have a brother in between.
Okay.
He lives down in Texas. So for me, it was an opportunity to just, and I don't even, at that point, I'm like, I'm just gonna do tree work. I don't know how long, I'm just gonna run this train. Right? And I do remember that, right? So, but I don't have one particular instance where I
Fair enough.
have another thing. If you want to flash back to all that.
Yeah, absolutely.
You asked me about my military career. I
100%.
actually enlisted when I was 17 years old. I went to school at Garden Spot High School in New Holland, Pennsylvania. New Holland's a great little town, but I needed to get out of it before I ended up getting a girl pregnant and working at Blockbuster Video for the rest of my life. Just I could see that happening, so it's time to go. There wasn't a lot of options for me. I was not a good high school student. Was not. I'm not dumb, but I didn't apply myself. I blame the teachers mostly at that point, because what's a 13-year-old know about applying himself? I didn't have, my father had a great work ethic, but when my father dealt with stress, he just worked harder, which means I saw him less. But he did a good job. So anyway, it just seemed like a good thing to do. So I actually could have graduated high school at the end of my junior year. I decided not to because my birthday is in April, so I'd only been like 17. Couldn't have truly gone into it, just would have been a year of me probably running around finding people to drink with, getting in trouble. This wouldn't have been good. But I did go in, I enlisted. The idea, my original intent was to basically be a lifer, do 20 years and retire.
Okay.
I learned about a year in that my blatant disregard for authority was not going to allow this to happen
That's great.
for long. So I did my initial enlistment, and it was a good experience. I have no regrets. I don't like anything you do things differently, Ironically, I never served my own country in my own country. I was always overseas through my military experience, and then when I got out, it was, I think for me, the separation was more loss of a hive than anything. And I think that was, because, you go through 4 years of your life and you're always with somebody. You do everything together. Hell, you take a shit together. It's what you do. It's just, you're always around, somebody's always there.
Yeah.
You live in that. And then I get out and it's like, where did everybody go?
Yeah, that's wild.
And I really didn't have anything in common with my friends from high school because they pretty much got their girlfriends pregnant and were working at Blockbuster Video. Nothing against Blockbuster Video.
Yeah, exactly.
I wanted a little more out of life than that.
Yeah.
So it sounds to me like you were pursuing excellence all the way back then, or at least this is what I'm hearing.
I was trying to be more,
Yes.
I just didn't want that. Right?
Yeah.
I didn't know what I wanted. I didn't know anything. And then when I got out, so when you get out of the military, I had paid for and qualified for GI Bill benefits.
Yeah.
You have 10 years to use that
Mhm.
from your time in service. And I was 20 to 23 years old. I realized that if I didn't do it soon, I would meet a girl. Life would happen. Good things.
Yeah.
But it just wouldn't get to it.
Understood.
I still didn't know what the hell I wanted to do.
Yeah.
But I love writing. And so I went and I just went to college and I ended up doing a sort of a customized program, but it's a philosophy degree.
Yeah.
And I have a philosophy degree because one, there's a lot of writing. And two, I found out my main philosophy professor, I didn't go to Penn State main campus, I went to the French campus. Brandywine, it's
Sure.
Brandywine now, it was Delaware County campus.
Okay.
I had like one philosophy professor there, Dr. Ginsburg, but he was a really, really good instructor and influenced me a great deal as a teacher and inspired me to take those things and run with them.
That's awesome.
So I finished up my philosophy degree and there's really not a lot to do with it. Although it's people, I tell this is my training joke, right? Oh, I have a degree in philosophy, anybody else? And nobody ever raises their hands.
Yeah.
Well, how many of you have degrees? And then I raise their hands. Like, how many of you use them every day? Just saying, my hand's still up.
Yeah,
saying.
yeah.
But I think-
fair point.
Education, I think the other reason that I went to school is through my military experience at like 19, 20 years old, I learned a very valuable lesson. I learned that everything can be taken from you. Everything you own, all your property, it can all be put in a box and sent somewhere. They can even take your tomorrow, right? What they can never take from you is what you know. So it has been a goal of mine to acquire as much knowledge as possible, because it can never be taken from me. Whether I use it or not, it's mine. And that was one of the driving forces for me with going to school and just learning stuff, right? And to advance that formal education. There's lots of ways to educate yourself. But I wanted it for that reason.
That's awesome. That almost reminds me a little bit, you mentioned Frankel earlier, the man's search for meaning. You know, he's in the concentration camps, and to me, in a way that echoes what you're saying. They took everything from him, all of his property, but not his thoughts, or that's how he started that whole logotherapy thing. Was like, you know, the way that I feel, the way that I respond, you cannot take that from me, and that's at its highest level. So I hear a little echo of that.
Oh yeah, I mean, I studied that book extensively with Dr. Ginsburg, and
That's awesome.
you know, and read through that book. And it's like, you know, my own take on it now is, you know, there's attitude and perseverance. The only two things you control, attitude and perseverance. When you think about a situation and how hard you're willing to fucking work. The only two things you really control, right?
Wow.
And then it goes back, a lot of my studies through philosophy were based on Stoicism. And with Stoicism was one of the tendencies, don't just focus on what you can control. Forget the rest. It either happens or it doesn't. Right? So a lot of times, what do you truly, when you have nothing left, what do you control? Your attitude and perseverance.
There you go. That's really good.
That's stripping it down, which is, I mean, I'm benefiting from hearing that.
100%.
You know, it's like,
Yeah.
so quick spin off. So when, and I hear that you love to write. So when you write stylistically, like what kind of things do you write about? Like life philosophy type stuff?
Yeah, I love to write fiction.
Oh,
I've
wow.
written 2 fiction novels, published 2 novels. They're not really, well, you can still get the Kindle version.
Is it
of
Free Fall?
Free Falling and Fall Factor.
Yeah.
Yeah. I do need to, I self-publish those, so I don't think the paper versions are around anymore.
Okay.
Because it gets expensive to maintain that. I think you can you can still get the Kindle version of the second book, which is Free Falling. I love to write those. There's a bit of a story behind those as well too. Most of my writing has been professional.
Okay.
Just simply because writing is a creative process, whether it be fiction or professional, and there's only so much energy I can put into it. And stuff, right? It's like a savings bank. So I would say over the last 10 years, most of my writing has been professional, which is fun.
Sure.
I don't mind. I've written a number of, professional articles and things like that.
That's awesome.
It's fiction. I write a lot of different things. The last 4 to 5 years, I think it would be great if I could journal, but I just can't journal. I don't know. I try, I fail. I try, I fail.
Yeah.
But I have found that I journal in my own way. For me, recently, last 5 years, poetry or sort of crazy short essays that I put together
Nice.
are there. I have it all together. I just don't know what to do with it. It's basically a book of my journaling.
That's awesome.
Called Something Is Wrong with the Sky. I don't know how to publish it yet, though. It'll come. I don't know what to do with it.
It'll come, yeah.
I don't really have an outlet for it, but that's a whole other story. In these things, I have learned to trust in universal timing, right? Which I think is key. And a good friend of mine, Jody, she's a wonderful person, lives in upstate New York, and is a special ed teacher. And we were having a discussion about the pile of books on your bedside.
Mm-hmm.
That
I
pile?
know well.
Yeah.
Yes, I know.
And she has a wonderful perspective on it, because I would always look at that pile of books and feel a bit guilty, like, oh, I'm not good enough to read. I got to get these books read. But what I've learned is that there will always be that pile of books until the day I die, and then I don't know what my daughter will do with it, or somebody will do something with it. But the pile of books has to be there, because if the pile of books isn't there, how is the right book supposed to be in my hand when I need it? Right? So I've come to adopt that philosophy with my writings, especially my personal writings, outside of the professional, that they'll get published when they need to, right? Whether it be for me or someone else, they'll get out there. And if they don't ever get out, then they weren't needed, so that's fine. I learned to trust that.
Yeah.
And maybe that's me rationalizing my procrastination, but I'm okay with
Yeah. No, that's know thyself, right? Like that's a big deal.
So, and I think I can speak for you too, because am I an official writer with the book? No, but I've been writing for also a passion of mine, even sanctuary for me as well.
Sure.
And I know where it came from, and that would be my follow-up question. But you consider yourself as a writer as well, right? Almost like everybody's creative. It could be art, writing, whatever, So do you know where that came from? It just came to be like this. I just love this.
I really don't know. I've always just enjoyed writing. I've always been told I'm good at it.
Okay, cool.
I love it just has come naturally to me. I don't have, it's just always been there.
Yeah.
And I have some stuff that I wrote when I was a little kid and, stapled together loose pages and stuff. And, and I think it's important too. I think everybody should have some form of creative expression. And it could be anything from chainsaw carving to, it's important. And I run into a lot of really good people they just lack that creative expression. They always seem to be looking for something, right? Where you can find that creative expression. It could be, any number of things. I always, my daughter, Maggie, she'll turn 22 next week. Yeah, the 28th of this month, July. And she just graduated from Temple University with a degree in fine arts painting. She's a very good artist. And just in talking with her and stuff, and it's like the math and the sciences are great, and people should pursue those because those are the things that make us all the same. The arts are important, and they should be pursued because those are the things that make us all different. And you have to have both.
Yeah.
So I always encourage people to, if you feel like you're lacking something, try something creative. It could be anything.
I love that.
And that one of the questions, that was going to be one of the questions, if you do something else other than trees, and obviously the writing is it, and if that is something that in your training and leadership, is that something, it sounds like you do, but is that something that you also try to cultivate in people, or maybe even pull it out of them?
The writing aspect of it?
No, creative.
Oh, just
creative, yeah. Because everybody's different, right? Like you said, chainsaw carving, it could be, I don't even know what other stuff people do, but it could be taking care of a little aquarium down in your basement.
Yeah.
So it's just the idea of like, listen, which Paul and I kind of were just talking about before about the work, work, and then how you get carried away with the work, but that's not the intended purpose of life in general.
Right.
And that's like, it's easy to get into work and say, this is what I do, and just go full bore. But that creative outlet is how I see how you truly become the full expression of yourself in the work that you're trying to do.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
So in your trainings, is that something that you incorporate, or leadership, do you incorporate that, trying to get people to do that as well besides the work?
Yeah, to an extent, not so much in leadership, but I find too that one of the things that drew me to tree work was the creativity aspect of it, right? I met a lot of hardcore tree guys that are just like, I'm not creative, I'm not an artist, but man, can they prune. And when you think about pruning, how's it different than sculpture? It's really not, right? Like, you know what it's supposed to look like, and then you have this, and then you get it there. But it may be even a little more complex because it's living and growing, so you have to work within its biology. So I think having people finding that, I agree with you, Rick, that having a creative expression in your life is important. I think many people have it, they just don't see it, right? And I think for a lot of times, like tree pruning is a creative expression.
Absolutely.
Removal, not so much, more technical expression.
Sure.
Yeah.
But you can think outside the box that way too, right? There's just, there's this, like, it reminds me of a story. My dad in his later years, my mom passed away a couple of years before my dad did. My dad started another relationship, and I was over visit. He needed some help doing something at his girlfriend's house, he's over there and he'd been working on this rhododendron bush that he was pruning for beside our house for like 3 hours. And it's not a big bush, which of course, guilt and shame are training tools. I'm like, he's like, hey, this looks pretty good. I'm like, it should, Dad. You just spent the last 4 days on it. But anyway, I'm watching him prune this thing and I'm like, I didn't really think my father had a hobby. But there it is.
Yeah.
All right.
That's it.
Yeah.
And so I think that sometimes you have to see it. And if you told him that, he'd be like, oh, so, this is what I do.
Yeah, I'm just pruning up a shrub. No
Yeah.
big deal. This is viewed more as industry
Right.
than
Right.
creative expression, right? Like,
But I think, from a leadership standpoint, it does pay to encourage people to, use the term think outside the box or look at things differently. It can be very good. I remember going somewhere, at a conference or something somewhere, and there was a speaker and he gave this great piece of advice. He said, go to the wrong conference sometime. He says, sometimes you go to the big hotel and there's like a tree conference going on, but down the hallway there's like a conference of, I don't know, medical technicians or something. He says, well, just put your name badge on and turn it around maybe so they can't see and then walk in and just listen to a talk, right?
that's incredible.
And I thought, well, I gotta try this shit, right?
Yeah.
So I did it,
You
and I'm
did it.
sitting there listening, and I don't even know why,
this
but
is great.
my mind started churning on my own problems through there, like, yeah,
Wow.
so that's how a nurse deals with, like, I can use that over here.
That's
right?
crazy.
So go to the wrong conference, right? Which is the way of saying think outside the box,
Yeah.
or look at things creatively. Or if you have somebody on the crew that has a background that's different, whether it be construction or engineering or something simple. How would the engineer you look at this? And that's a form of creativity too, right?
Yeah.
I think so. Yeah, finding a way to express yourself and to, I think for me, creative expression has been sort of a pressure release valve, which I wish I would have realized it sooner in my career and not used maybe other substances like beer so much and drinking. And there's nothing wrong with that. I'm not saying there's nothing wrong with having a six-pack and cutting loose. But the problem that I found in my career was that if it was the only tool I had, and if the only tool you have is a hammer, every problem's a damn nail. And when people often ask me, like, what advice would I give to young arborists, and there's a lot of professional advice I give you, but probably the most important piece I give you is find a way to release the pressure other than alcohol, or have a couple different tools at your disposal to use, right? Whether that be creative expression or physical activity or whatever that might be. But have different tools, not just the one. I only had one. I didn't know any better. And I'm fortunate that I don't have an addictive personality, but I'm sure you guys know as well too, in this field, there's a lot of people that suffer from addiction. It's because it was the only tool they had.
No, it's great advice. It's odd too, like when you're saying this, I know when I'm sort of, and I think to some degree, it's industry, it's maybe some of it's male experience, it's culture. We really prop up this grind mentality. You see it everywhere. And so we think that the pinnacle of maleness almost is the ability to grind. And to some degree, kind of connecting one of your thoughts, perseverance. It's like, I'm in misery, it's 98 degrees, it's hot, I'm gonna grind because I know how to persevere. And so we glorify that to some degree. So this idea that a person, male or female, but men, I think in particular, a little bit to some degree, when we hear about being creative right away, because my daughter does art too, she's an art teacher, went to Rowan for art, whatever. We think of it as like that, like, well, I can't do what she does. I can't make these beautiful, but I have my own creative things I do. And personally, I feel more, I don't know if it's my most authentic self or so, when it's, when I have the ability to pause or slow it down and get off the grind. It's a different type of pause than the speaking pause, but I think creating a space to allow the brain to kind of, I have it's a little street philosophy, I call it. Like when we're constantly shoving things in, I got my phone, TV, all this stimulus we're constantly taking in. When do we get a chance to stop that push back against the din of all that stimulus and allow something to come out. And I think in that space is where we can allow a little bit of that creativity to flourish. I love what you're saying, and I so identify with it. And admittedly, when we're in the season, you know, mid-March kicks in, and I feel like I get on a treadmill and I just book it until about now. You know, August, you know, you've been and now mind you, I'm not even out in the field every day, so I'm not suffering physically the way my team is right now. But you almost, I feel, and I'm only, this is my experience, and I'm curious for you guys to chime in, is not that I become unrecognizable, but it's like estimates work. You know, Saturday, sharpening chains. Sunday, I do take that pause and I sleep in a little bit. I have my coffee. I write. I long form journal every Sunday morning for a while. 3 to 5 pages, just kind of creative dump. Sometimes it's just, this is what I did this week. It's just by rote, mundane, whatever. Other times it's poetry. Put some classical music on. But my point is like, not that I'm unrecognizable, but it's almost like I don't like the me that I am sometimes at the end of a big grind. I like myself better when it's winter. There's less grind, and I can look out and look at the snow come down and watch the birds at the feeder, and I think this is life. You know, so I appreciate what you're saying. How do you guys feel about balancing and reconciling the sort of mechanics of putting food on the table versus this other side of ourselves that we really need to pay attention to? You know?
You're the guest, so you can start.
Well, I think that anytime somebody uses the word balance when it comes to lifestyle, I think you're using the wrong word. I think rhythm is far better.
Yeah, I love it.
Because when you say balance, like I got to balance my working life, so that means I worked 10 days straight. Should I take 10 days off? Yes, that's balance, right? It doesn't work that way, right? If you truly like your job, which I've been fortunate, you know, most of the time, most days, I really like my job.
Sure.
Some days it sucks. That's what we call work. But I think it's more rhythm, right? And understanding that some days I'm just going to have to go harder than other days and others. And I've learned to embrace it's like embracing the rhythms of the seasons, right? And like even the rhythm of, say, diet. Like I eat a lot more vegetables this time of year because we have a garden in the front yard. I don't eat that many vegetables in December because the garden's kind of snowed over. It's okay, right? And I'm not going to feel bad because I'm not eating enough vegetables. It's just the rhythm that it's in, right? And the way that it goes. So from once I changed that perspective from balance to rhythm, and then I started to grant myself that compassionate latitude, right? Which is basically just giving myself a damn break. I'm not perfect. I'm not gonna get there. I'm gonna make plenty of mistakes on the way. And sometimes, you know, like just working hard and grinding it out, I just need to do it. Like, sometimes it just needs to be done due to demands put on me by other people and things I need to complete. Sometimes mentally I need to do it for myself. Because I don't have space to, you know, I just go, right? You know, and then, but knowing that it's a rhythm and that eventually it will come back, you know, and then finding ways to work it into your system and to understand that, you know, to get the break that you're looking for doesn't mean you got to spend 45 minutes a day meditating. It could be a 2-minute sip of water or a cup of coffee. Or it could just be a picture on your dashboard that reminds you why you're doing this. Or, you know, a good friend of mine, arborist in Oklahoma, stops and get coffee every morning, and he's up, you know, business owner, running crews, like he looks at the moon when it's out. This reminds him, you know, that there's a big world out there. And finding those small rituals of what they are, put it into your life, and then figuring it out and understanding, you know, sometimes life sucks, right? But how could you possibly know how good you have it if it doesn't suck every once in a while? Right? You got to have the two dichotomies, and that's why I prefer that word, like rhythm over balance. Sometimes they're hard, and sometimes it's easy. Right? Where I have to be careful is just to make sure that if I'm grinding it out, it's not necessarily better because I'm suffering. Right? You know, it's like, this is the worst relationship I've ever been in. This woman makes me suffer. This must be great. No,
get out.
This more isn't, you know, suffering isn't, you know, sometimes you have to work hard.
Sure.
You should never truly have to suffer.
Right.
those times and to get the bigger perspective on it too, right? Am I doing the things for myself, but am I doing the things for my family as well too? Right?
Yeah.
Am I taking time to take care of them?
No, I love that. No, and I think it's important really for the listeners to hear, because I will occasionally, and I'm sure you do, and you do as well with all of your moving around in the industry. I get some DMs from people, and I got one recently, and a guy, and he's in a family business, and his dad's, about 70, and he's kind of like, he's checking out. And I feel to some degree, there's other things I want to do, and I'm not at 70 yet, but I think those strategies and understanding rhythm is important for people coming up through the industry that suffer those things or go through those things, to understand. And it sounds almost like a little bit of existentialism, right? Like, whatever season I'm in it. I control the controllables. I allow for things to kind of happen in their own pace, time, and space, and it's okay. And the one thing you hit on that I think is really, really vital for humans in general is to be kind to yourself a little bit. Like you said something about it. I don't know if you used the word grace, or like, I give myself
Compassionate latitude.
Yeah. Compassionate latitude. That, I love that, because, and I don't know if this is a me thing or a human condition thing, is that I'm 61, and I'm really just learning that. Like I'm saying, like, bro, like, it's okay. You've had victories. Like, you have a good life. It's rich. It's whole. You're in one piece. You're physically, like, give yourself a little bit of, say it again. What is it?
Compassionate latitude.
Yeah, I really, I love that. I love that. And is that something you, is there something that helped you develop that? Is that just a place you got to, like, kind of developing that term? I don't know if there was a process or just life.
I'm pretty sure I stole the term from somebody.
Okay.
I don't know who.
Okay,
Who
sure.
the original, right? What do they say? Like, it's a phrase that, like, talent borrows and genius steals. I took that as
Something like that. Yeah.
Okay.
But nonetheless, you
it's
adopted
probably
it.
not my term, but I
Yeah.
adopted it. And it's just, it is, part of it is accepting where you're at.
Mm-hmm.
Right, and understanding that not every day is a perfect day, and that you make mistakes, but then understanding that it doesn't matter who you were when you got knocked down. It only matters who you are when you stand back up.
Mm-hmm.
And that's compassionate attitude.
Yeah.
Right? To understand that, that was the dumbest shit ever.
Mm-hmm.
But I did it, and there it is, right? Like,
Yeah.
Yeah. I can learn from it and move on. The mistake comes when you do it again and again. And if that is happening to you, then maybe that's usually when I tell people, well, you probably need some professional help,
Yeah.
right? Like, you might need to not be able to do this on your own.
Yeah.
You might need to.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
There is nothing wrong.
I think a lot of people struggle with that. I mean, it's like, there's something, and it's like, you already have something wrong actively.
Right.
How do you think that's still wrong to go get help?
Yeah.
It's already wrong to begin with anyway. That's,
Yeah, I mean, sometimes we just don't have, because this happened to me back a ways, going through some things. I kept hitting this ceiling with a certain specific type of behavior, and then I started doing a little bit of work on, it's a catchword now, but like trauma, trauma, and I realized, okay, this is family stuff, my mom and this and that. And I realized at some point, I was like, I don't have the capacity, I don't have the tools necessary I keep hitting this ceiling. So what happened to me is I recognized a pattern had developed.
Right.
Like, man, every time I get to this point where I think I'm gonna sort of have a breakthrough, I retreat, or I fail, or I stumble. And then what I did is, I looked for help in different areas and found some good book recommendations and different things, and just began to do some internal work. But it took purposeful, kind of digging into this thing. So I love that. We don't always have all the tools necessary to solve a problem that's at hand.
Right. Yeah. And I'm with Brick. I mean, the great part of my adult life, I would have considered going to a therapist or a counselor as sort of a sign of weakness. When it's the exact opposite.
Agreed.
Now, that's the belief that took me. I had to be convinced of. Right?
Yeah, agreed, yeah.
It's no different than I tell people now. It's like, hey, if your car's not running right, I run my truck down to Chris, the mechanic down the road, and say, Chris, I don't know what's going on, but you gotta fix this. Because I'm not a mechanic.
Yeah.
I don't have the tools, I don't have the shop.
Yeah.
Nor the time. Right? It's just the same thing, like if your brain's not working right, you're gonna go see somebody get it fixed. Or something about it, right? And it's this, and I've been fortunate in my life that I haven't had to go that route a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But, maybe things would have been different earlier on if I had, but it's fine. I think that, and to get back, where do I read a lot of books, right? I think you have to read, I read a lot of books. I consider listening to books reading them.
Sure.
Podcasts, like if you listen to podcasts, I consider that a book reading. I just do, right? It's you absorbing knowledge, however you choose to get it. So I absorb a lot of knowledge that way. And a lot of, like I said, when I was doing my philosophy education, I was basically, the other sort of the more internal reason is, at that point in my life, I was looking for an operating system, right? I didn't really have an operating system. My parents were having their own issues. My mother had addiction problems and all those things. Don't get me wrong, my family life was fine.
Sure.
But it was, my mother had her problems and she was not, I didn't have much of an operating system.
Mm-hmm.
My father's work ethic was, well, just work harder, Tony, which, it does, but only so far.
Yeah.
So when I found, and I use philosophy, mostly the philosophy of Stoicism, as my operating system. And one of the tenets of that is the constant introspection, right? To look at the things in your life that work and what they don't work and where you want to go and to kind of figure it out. And it's a skill that can be developed over time. So I think just constantly doing that, looking for different answers, led me down those paths. And and you get those moments in life when, something changes or shifts. And one of those for me is, it's like, if my brain is telling me that I can't do this shit, well, then I can't do it. It's, what's the saying? If you tell yourself you can or can't do it, you're right.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So, and I don't, there's no one moment I wake up and the lightning struck me, like,
Yeah.
just over time, it's like, I gotta take it easy on myself. I'm beating the shit out of myself here.
Yeah.
And what? For what? What's it getting me?
Yeah.
I'm not getting anywhere.
Yeah.
I've been beating the shit out of myself for 20 years, and I'm still here.
It's
Gotta change.
Yeah.
And it goes back to, a lot of it led into, doing the leadership work and working with leadership. And well, the reason I got involved in the leadership is because I realized in tree cares, I realized that pretty much like a crew leader is pretty much the guy that just shows up most consistently. Pretty much that's the quality. Like, you've been here for 5 years and you show up.
Mm-hmm.
But you'll send that person down the road with what? $750,000 worth of equipment, 2 to 3 other lives, and the responsibility to get all the work done and give them absolutely no leadership training. Right? None.
Yeah.
But then look what you're asking them to do.
Yeah.
So, and it's a glaring problem, right? And then through that, in looking to find ways to apply leadership into arboriculture, it occurred to me that leadership starts, and you approached this earlier on in the podcast, with yourself, right? So if you want to be a good leader, you have to be a good person, because nobody wants to follow a leader that isn't a good person. Right? So you have to start with yourself. So that led me down the path of widening the introspection and looking at myself and like, who and what am I? And how do I want to be? And how am I going to get there? Right? So I think that when I start working and doing leadership programs, it has to start with yourself. It's always just a thing of self-discovery. what do you value in life?
Yeah.
Right? Because ultimately you can only lead people effectively that have similar values. Just the way it is. And it doesn't mean that if your values are different, you're wrong. It just means it's different. Right?
Yeah.
You can only, so, and that's essentially what you could define as a culture. Right?
I love that.
That's cool. When the values relate.
Yes, there's a
Right?
lot
When
of-
everybody's working together and the values are similar enough, right? Then you have a culture.
Yeah.
Right? And people that don't have those same values or value at the same level are not bad or wrong. They're just from a different culture,
Yeah.
for lack of a better term.
No, that's interesting. And I like to use the word alignment to some degree. I remember when Diane from Arbor Expo, Diane Morgan, she's like, you guys are doing a podcast? Like, there was like, how did this happen?
Yeah.
15 years apart, obviously we're quite different people, blah, 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 but there's alignment on some very fundamental, I say we're very different people living very different lives with different backgrounds and, experiences and whatnot, but the things that matter, there's alignment. And it's a little foo-foo, but it's like that vibrational frequency, and I saw that I went on your website, and we'll get all your contact stuff before you roll, but like I saw you play the guitar some, and it's like having that dissonant string. Like, it's like, does it fit or does it not? Does it make the song better or does it not? It's like culture, right? It's like, are we all sort of at least vibrating in a frequency that works, rather than there's creating this dissonance, this tension, which musically works, but maybe not so much for culture, within the framework of a business or whatever. So no, I love that. That's cool stuff. So
It was a good analogy. I understand it, music obviously, but I can enjoy music, but I wouldn't be able to tell you there's a note that's off.
Right.
Yeah.
But I definitely can understand the culture part if something's off.
Yeah.
100%. And especially with municipality. It's just, we talked earlier, but it's just the way the structure is, but, it's I think it's fair to say that in a way that you'll be aligned with people that have similar operating systems.
I would think so.
That's what it is, right? And that's just, it's like, that's why it works so well, because it doesn't have to be exactly the same, but the operating system you're operating on, you're gonna be woo-woo, but it's the attraction, and you get attracted together.
Yeah.
And that's the culture.
And I think, you will become the sum of the 5 people you hang out with the most. It's incontrovertible, it just is. You will become that. So hang out with the right people. We're not sure what you want to be. Find someone that's like, I think I want to be like them. Hang out with them.
Yeah.
Now, and there's lots of ways to hang out with them too, right? Like, they don't even have to be alive. You can read the book.
Dude, thank you for that. Dude, I love
Powerful.
Well, it's that I totally stole. It's the very beginnings of Stoicism as a philosophy. Or from there was a Greek merchant that was shipwrecked. Right? Well, it was an Egyptian merchant. He was shipwrecked, but anyway, his name was Zeno, and he ended up in Athens. Right, this is the way the story goes. And he's there for a while. He's like, can't get off this ship. Everything he owns is gone. Right, he's wandering around. I gotta find something to do, and he hears Aristotle speaking, and he's like, that sounds good. And he really starts to look into that and dig into that, and through this he decides to go to the Oracle of Delphi, right, to get a prophecy. He needs a prophecy, so he goes up and meets with the Oracle of Delphi, and the Oracle says, "Converse with the dead." It's his prophecy. So, what the fuck's that supposed to mean? And he says, "Books. I can read books."
Yeah, that's right.
Right.
Yeah.
So you can find a lot of role models that way too. Right?
Yeah.
Some of the things that you can also have. You can have the anti-role model or the shadow role model. You can see, especially with leadership, the way people lead that you don't like, and you can just not do that.
Yeah.
Right?
It's pretty simple, right? Like, don't do that.
Don't be that way, or understand how that affects people with it, right? But yeah, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. You just grab the wheel and paint it your color.
That's cool. I've heard that before. That's good. I like it.
Good.
So,
It's funny because, sorry, go ahead.
No. I just wanted to, there's definitely one part, there's 2 parts to it. But like first, I'm going to let you guys in on a little secret, which is for the listeners too. And I love that you just nailed it. That's why I got excited. Municipal work, as you alluded earlier, it's a very difficult place to work in, not because of actual work, but of people because of mindset of not working. However, my life situation and the choices that I made a decision that I'm in the place, you guys can be like me, not I need to leave because I'm not like you. So that's always been my mindset. So how did I do that? I'm so serious right now. I literally did that because my 5 best friends were the books that I was reading and the podcasts that I was listening to. So the dead people included, but I literally, like, if you came to me and be like, yo, these these are the people I hang out with. Like, what do you mean? It's like, they're not there, but I'm my soul and everything. That's literally how I got through the tough time of how to navigate that situation, just so that my family could be provided the best way that I felt they could be provided. But I had to suffer and figure out how to get through the suffering. And it was literally through that. I was reading books of people that had since passed, that have an incredible wealth of knowledge in books and also podcasts, which luckily the implant that I have, it goes, the podcast actually goes into my brain. And it's like, it's called In the Room. And I can literally have you like listen. I'm not talking obviously, but I'm listening as if I'm with, like Paul. I'm learning so much from him. That he's here actively. It's no different.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Exactly. Yeah. But it's never been no different for me, and it's just so cool that with your philosophy background, and clearly articulate, intelligent. You just said that. I'm like, yeah, that it's a real thing. It definitely, there's no reason why you have to be physical. Like, let's just say Michael Jordan in basketball, who's you could still have Michael Jordan if he had books, documentaries or whatever, and you still get that same, input into you to be like those people that you aspire to be. Yeah, so I just want, that's like a little secret. A lot of people, why do you always stay in municipality? How do you really? And I'm like, I've always believed that that's the fishbowl I'm in. I'm trying to be the influence rather than letting them dictate, get me aggravated and kick me out kind of a situation.
See, and that's an attitude I could never adopt and never had the strength to stick with. I just couldn't do it. I know my limitations.
Yeah, which and again, it's like a respect thing, right? It works both ways. I got to respect that 100%,
Right.
and I would hope I get the same respect.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, somebody's got to do it, right? And I've seen municipalities where there is really good cultures underneath all of the things that come with a bureaucracy. Right?
Yeah.
And that's fine. Then sometimes it gets so toxic it's insulting. But that's
Yeah.
But I say more often than not, the ones I've seen are fine. Right? Everybody works within certain parameters.
Correct.
And you do the best you can within those parameters. And it can be very, very difficult, right? The good part from a work standpoint is the amount of security that comes with working for a municipality, right?
That's the big thing.
No. The benefits are generally better, right? Because you have a bigger pool to go from. So when it comes to raising a family, it's like I know plenty of arborists that they got a job at a university or a college somewhere and kept it for 30 years because the security, the educational benefits for their children and themselves, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's great. But have they sacrificed? No. They just took a different path.
Yeah.
Right?
Decisions.
Right. There's just certain things, and I know the way that I am, and it just would not be. I would have to change too much of the way I want to go through the world to work in that environment.
Yeah.
Just couldn't, like it would just not be. It would not be good.
Yeah.
And I tell people all the time, it's like, it's work. I'm not expecting them to be coming here and be, oh, Mr. Smith, yeah, this is the best thing I've ever had. No, that's not realistic. But if you truly don't enjoy what you're doing on a general basis, get out.
Yeah.
Go somewhere else. Mostly because life's short. In fact, we could live to be 5,000 years old, and you're still going to not have enough days, right? So do something that makes you generally happy.
Yeah.
Right?
That's a fair point.
Understanding that, there's rhythms to life. And not every day, not every week, not every month is perfect, right? And these things happen that you gotta go through. But in general, if you can sit down at the end of the day, the end of the year, whatever time period you give yourself, say, yeah, that was pretty good, I like that. Then keep doing it. If not, get the fuck out.
Yeah.
Right? Just get out.
Yeah.
Right? Because when you're making my job worse, it's just get out.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's valuable for the listeners, valuable information, and which will take some time of discovery to figure that out.
And there's plenty of ways to do it. I'm not saying that you couldn't have a job that you go to the factory and you punch widgets all day and it's not very satisfying, but you come home and do things that you truly enjoy. There's plenty of ways around it.
Yes.
I chose the job that was the lifestyle, right? But you could choose the job that's just, it's paycheck, it's okay, but I come home and I'm in a band, or, you know, or I do this, or I do that, right? And I think it's interesting now when I look at my daughter and, you know, that generation now, they have wonderful opportunities. Like, she could go get a job at Wawa and be a manager and make a good living. And it'd be a fine job and probably a fine place to work with, but it might not be a lifestyle she wants.
Sure.
But she could have a whole art gallery thing on the side, because there's not, I'm not entirely sure at her age I had that option, right?
Yeah.
It was get a job and get a career, and, you know, I don't think, I couldn't have done two. Right? Blockbuster just wasn't happening.
I love the blockbuster. 'Cause I'm old enough for the blockbuster.
Well, sometimes I say that and people look at me, Blockbuster.
What is
Yeah,
that?
for me, yeah.
If I have to explain it, you won't.
Yeah, you don't
Joe,
know.
no.
Yeah.
If you're really interested, look at it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
That's awesome.
Yeah, cool. So if we're good, I want to just take a quick pivot, because I noticed in your,
Yeah, just a lot.
I noticed in your bio when I was kind of going through doing a little show prep that you did compete. You competed for.
Yeah, about 12 years.
Yeah, so, when we talk to folks that have had that career, that have competed and so forth, a lot of times I'd like to just talk through it, almost as a benefit to anyone listening, to pull benefit for the listener, right? To say, okay, why compete? What were the benefits of it? And then clearly you moved from the competition scene into volunteering, judging, and giving of yourself to this endeavor to help put these events on. So if you wouldn't mind, just wax philosophical a little bit about your career, climbing, when it was, how, why, benefits, why other people maybe should consider it, or just push themselves out of their comfort zone to do it.
Well, I mean, if you were to draw a straight line through my arboricultural career, that straight line would be the tree climbing competitions, either as a competitor or as a volunteer. I don't think there's one connection that I've made in this industry that doesn't somehow branch off of that.
Okay.
From a just straight up, I mean, I like competing when I was competing because I never really did sports in high school. I spent a lot of time in the woods trying not to be found. I was pretty good at it, right? And then I got out of high school and went in the Army and learned how not to be found and how not to get killed. Or how to be hard to kill. So I never really did, it wasn't my father didn't encourage me to do that. It just wasn't, sports wasn't a thing. But I think I would have enjoyed it. And I think I found that doing the climbing comps later in life. Right? I think I would have enjoyed playing football in high school. I just didn't do it for whatever those reasons were. So that was part of it. Mostly too, I tell you, people, as a trainer, people always ask me, hey, when are you gonna do a training in this area? Where's the training around here? I'm like, every chapter of the ISA has a competition every year.
Wow.
And it's probably, depending on what you're looking for, it's cheaper than I'm gonna have to charge you. And two, it might even be a little better, depending on what you're looking for. So it's a great way to train and then to network. I think that when my brother Ben started the company in Lancaster County, there were a lot of tree companies around, but not even close to the same level. They were just, we had everything from the Amish guy with literally an aluminum extension ladder and a bow saw.
Wow.
And everything got topped. Like if he could get his saw and ladder to it, he cut it. I shit you not, it was a bow saw.
That's where he cut it.
Yeah, that's where he cut it, right there. And if it was too big for the bow saw and his ladder, it was too big for tree.
Yeah.
So we worked in isolation and so the tree climbing competitions were an opportunity for me to see that, other people actually did this work too.
Yeah.
So that was great. And I was never a great competitor. I lost way more than I won, but I think that's better. I never minded it so much. I enjoyed it. The people I met there were always for it. Probably the reason I stuck with arboriculture as a career was the tribe, the community, right? Because at the point in my life when I decided to be my career, that's what I truly needed. That's what the appeal for the military was for me. That's when I got out, that's what I missed so much. And it's like a tribe of like-minded people. So that's the community really kept me into it. And the climbing competitions was the yearly gatherings.
Yeah.
So I competed a lot. And then I started volunteering at the ITCC pretty much simultaneously. And it was in a position, the first time I volunteered at the ITCC was 2000. It was in Baltimore, which is just 2 hours, hour and a half down the road.
Yeah.
And I knew it was down there. I had done the Arbor Master training course with Ken and Rip a couple of years before, so I knew Ken and Rip. and they were involved.
Yep.
I had known Tim Bushnell,
Mhm.
just because he was working in that, so, lives in the area. So I knew a couple people, and I went to my brother and said, hey, could I just take like Friday off? I just want to go down and help.
Yeah.
He said, sure. So I went down, and then they sent me out. It's a whole nother story with Peter Donzelli, but I basically spent that day in a park in Baltimore, deadwooding oak trees that weren't even really part of the competition with Peter Donzelli.
Wow.
2 weeks later, he had his accident.
Wow.
And he was killed. And I'd known Peter before from some other events, but it was the first time I really got to spend some time with him, spend a lot of time talking and getting to know him. Because basically Peter and I were there, but they're like, we were kind of the outsiders looking at it, like, just go do this work. All right, Rip, whatever you want. Go over here and deadwood this tree that nobody gives a shit about. I don't care. There wasn't quite that bad. I'm exaggerating. Hyperbole there.
There you go.
Yeah.
2001, I didn't volunteer because it was in Milwaukee and we had storm damage,
Mhm.
so I didn't go out. Didn't feel right asking for the time off because the company wasn't that big. But from 2002 to right about COVID, I volunteered every year at ITCC. I would turn it into a bit of a journey. I would get on my motorcycle, either ship my gear out or just pack it in the back and go. Because I was pretty much doing it on my own dollar.
Yeah.
So the cheaper I could do it, the better. I was fortunate that the Pendle chapter actually helped for a couple of years, helped disperse some of my costs, my travel costs, with the deal being that I would come back and either compete or volunteer at the chapter competition.
Yeah.
That was wonderful.
That's
There was
awesome.
nothing to do about that. I was fortunate that when I was working full-time with Arborist Enterprises, Ben would actually pay me for the work days I took off for professional development, so I was, very fortunate to do that. It got to a point after, I want to say, maybe 2004, 2002, 2000, somewhere in there. I think the competition was in Montreal that year. And I basically went up to like Tim Bushnell, the guy, and said, look, I'll come up and help you, but I need a job. Like, I'm basically just showing up and they're,
Yeah.
and I don't, but I'm like, if I'm gonna do this, I want to be a participating member.
Right.
And that's when they put me on head tech of the Footlock. And it was head tech of Footlock for, like, I call it the glory years. I was in the tree tech when all the world records were set, except for the last 2 or 3, because I wasn't involved in that. Now it's not a thing anymore because they changed it. And then I went from there and ended up being the head tech of the work climb.
Wow.
Worked with Jeff Dice as the head judge, learned
It's amazing.
a great deal about leadership and people. Jeff's just a wonderful, if he hasn't been a guest yet, just call him up. Get him on, he'd love to do it. He's just a wonderful, wonderful arborist, just a wonderful man, wonderful story person. He's retired now, he's got time.
And where does he hail? Where does he hail from? Where does he?
He's up around, he lives up around Williamsport.
Okay.
But yeah, he'd love to come down and chat with me. But anyway, I'm volunteering for him.
There you go.
Voluntold him. Worked with Jeff, and then eventually the last, I don't remember, 4 or 5 years, I was the head judge of the work line. And then right about then, the ISA, the ITCC, just started to undergo leadership change
Mhm.
on the committee level. And, because before, with all the committee head or the head judge, like Tom Greenwood and Jeff and everyone that was, because I was consistently volunteering, this is another leadership lesson I learned from that. They would always call me ahead of time and say, hey, Tony, just wanted to make sure that you're gonna volunteer this year, and if you're going to, let us know and we can slot you in and get things going. And I really, really appreciated that phone call. Made me feel appreciated and valued.
Yeah.
And that call stopped coming. And it didn't come, so I didn't volunteer.
Interesting.
I think it was 2 points. One, it was, I think subconsciously I was done with it. The one thing I wish my parents would have taught me was how to stop doing shit, how to quit. They never taught me how to quit anything. It's like, if you start it, you gotta go for the whole life. Like, it can't be any different. Never taught me how to let go, never taught me how to quit. So I think it's subconsciously I was ready to quit anyway.
Interesting.
And I did kind of, like, they didn't call me. I seen how this works. And that was me and my blatant disregard for authority.
This is a great
But I have no regret. It was awesome. I enjoyed everything. I don't regret not doing it anymore. Like I said, for the last 3 to 5, maybe last 3 years, I was holding on to the tribe, and I really just enjoyed volunteering and helping, but I enjoyed seeing people there
Yeah.
and meeting them. And some of them weren't coming around anymore. They were moving on with their own things.
Yeah.
Right? And COVID changed a lot. with the way people would travel and,
absolutely.
and do things. So I think it was time for me to step out and to
Yeah.
move on anyway, which is fine. It was a great deal of experience and I enjoyed it greatly. For the longest time there, when I was head technician of Work Climb, I had what I considered the ultimate volunteer job. I was the head technician of the Work Climb, so I spent the whole comp in the tree, chatting with all the climbers one-on-one.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Right? And I was the head tech and the in-tree tech in the Masters Challenge. So I saw every Masters Challenge climb from the tree, often had a little bit of a discussion with the climbers as they went by, like, hey, how you doing? Yeah, pretty good, Tony, how you doing? All right. Got to work with Mark Bridge, phenomenal.
Yeah,
I know him very well.
Got to work because he was always he was the head tech most of the time for the great majority of when I was doing those things, and it was wonderful, absolutely, it's awesome how I'm doing it, and would not have traded that for the world. Just a wonderful thing, so that's my climbing competition career.
Yeah. No, that's awesome.
That's
And I
very
guess
rich.
it is, it's amazing. Couple things hit me, because I want to back up, but I also want to go forward. So there's two things I'm going to ask, and I'm saying this so I don't forget. One is, I'm sure there's a lot of young listeners who don't know who Pete Donzelli was, what he brought to the industry, and in a sort of a way, because I didn't know him, but I knew what he brought to the industry, and I remember that whole thing unfolding, because I've been around a while. Just kind of almost to honor his memory, I would love you to just talk to the listeners about who he was and what he did for the industry, in the industry.
Myself included.
And then, the accident, that's a whole nother thing. If you want to touch on that, you can. If you don't, it's fine.
Right.
And then when we're done with that, I want to go and just, what would we tell young people coming in of why maybe if they don't want to compete, why they should maybe volunteer? So maybe start with Pete, and then we'll kind of touch on
Sure.
why volunteering is.
Yeah, Peter Donzelli. So there are other people that are far more qualified to tell Peter's story than me. But
Sure.
I'll tell what I know.
I would appreciate it.
Peter was an arborist, but mostly he was a biomechanical engineer. Was a professor at Rensselaer Polytechnical Institute. I think I said that right, around Albany, New
Okay.
York. But Peter, as was described to me, always loved tree work, just found it fascinating. Even though he was a professor and was an engineer with a PhD, had a doctorate and the whole thing. Sometime in the, I would say, early to mid 90s, hooked up with Rip and Ken through Arbormaster. Started working with them. It was described to me, his mother told me that he was fascinated as a kid with tree work. He'd just sit there and watch it happen. Like other kids would watch tractors, Pete watched tree work. And what he basically did through Arbormaster was he brought his engineering background into tree work, rigging specifically, right? So Pete was really the first qualified engineer professional to look at what we did and go, man, that's really dumb, right?
Yeah.
But then so during the course of working with Arbormaster as a trainer and doing those things, he and Sharon Lilly wrote the book, The Art and Science of Practical Rigging. Yeah, right, which is still a seminal work.
Yep.
In arboriculture. Did that through ISA, was involved. It was, like I said, was doing training. Most people don't realize it, but at the time of his accident, he and Sharon had just gotten engaged to be married. He was going to leave, as I understand it. Sharon, another great guest, if you'd like to talk to someone, was actually going to leave her position at ISA. He was going to resign, and I believe they were going to move to the Pittsburgh area and start a training company. So quite honestly, if Pete had not had his accident, I probably wouldn't have had the opportunities I may have had, because he would have filled them. Or my path might have taken a very different method. But essentially what happened with Pete is he was working up home. He was from the Albany, New York area, was working with a local tree care company. And there's a lot that goes in. His accident was described by Stanley Longstreth, I think, as being the perfect storm of shit that happened. We could probably spend an hour talking about the accident. It's not really, we can later or whenever you want to.
No, that's fine.
Essentially, he was taking the top out of a white pine. He was rigging it down, natural crotch, through a series of tree structure issues, poor lowering technique, things being overloaded, which is a whole lesson in rigging. The top broke out about beneath him. He fell 75 feet and was crushed by the piece he hit. I think and that's there's lessons to be learned in the accident himself, but what I think the biggest lesson, that legacy that Peter left behind, is now when you look at like the arborist statistics that we all reference, they all start at 1999 because of Peter. Peter's incident, Peter was doing everything, well, there were things that went wrong. Peter wasn't doing anything wrong or unsafe. Events and everything conspired, but it was a wake-up call. From that, Shane Vosberg started his research project with Dr. Ball for the accident statistics, right? Because they're like, well, what's happening? How many arborists are killed a year? And OSHA's like, oh, like 3. Well, you know, they didn't have numbers. Nobody knew. Because, well, are you an arborist or you're a landscaper? What, you know?
Yeah.
So really, Peter's accident was the genesis of the arborist statistics and what we know about incidents in this industry today. Right? Of course, his work with the the art and science of practical rigging is still work out there, and the things he's done. So, and there's a lot of other ripples that have went through that started a lot of things up in this industry, and made a lot of people kind of stand up and notice. I do remember the morning that I heard about Peter's accident. It was a rainy day, so we were back in the shop, and the accident happened the day before, and I was just sharpening chainsaws. My brother Ben came out and said, "Did you know it?" And told me the story. And when I heard the whole thing, he was working out of a white pine tree, a lightning struck white pine that they were removing. I was doing very similar work in a sweet gum the exact same day. The same work, different result. So it was just very, and like I said, just 2 weeks before, we were hanging out, talking about the difference between single end and double end 10X, because that's the kind of conversations you had with Peter, right? And they were fascinating. He was a guy that, he was one of those people that you'd meet and you felt like you'd known him for a long time.
That's a gift.
Yeah, and you could always have the weirdest conversations about single end and double end 10X.
Yeah, that's, and like you said, it was an eye opener. Because,
I think one of the intangible of it all was, when I wasn't there, but good friends of mine, Bruce Smith, Scott Prophet, when they went up to Peter's apartment to help clean it out. He had probably miles of rope under his table, books all over the place about the techniques, the engineering of it. There was no books about the humans involved. And if Pete had any weakness, he didn't get around to looking at the human part of it yet. He saw it all from a very engineering, mathematical standpoint. And that's it's not a condemnation or a criticism, it just is. I think he would have gotten there. Eventually.
You mean as humans as a limiting factor, or like what humans go through
As a
the
limiting
process?
factor.
Okay.
Because ultimately, when you look at the details of Peter's accident, he knew to give you some context, so it was about 100-foot tall white pine tree. It had been struck by lightning, the owner wanted it down. So Peter was basically doing the classic spiking up, removing limbs on the way down. At about the point where it failed, and we know this because, well, after Peter's accident, the tree company went back, cut the tree up, cleaned it, and put it in the dump. Ken and Rip and Dr. Shigo went and got the tree and reconstructed it and put it as best they could back together to look at it. Dr. Shigo looked at it. Where it failed for Pete, it had been lightning struck 14 years before. Well, when he was spiking up, you could see by his spike marks that he stopped there and he spiked around for a little bit, checking on something. And he obviously didn't consider it to be a problem. He continued up until the tunnel. So decisions were made, right? I think and this, like I said, it's not a criticism on Pete. I'm not, of course, making up. But I wonder if he'd have trusted his human instincts more and not so much the math, if there would have been a different story. Right? And I think that eventually Pete would have gotten there. But when you looked at his research and all the work he did, the math was flawless. It was beautiful. And I'm not math. Math is religion. I refuse to believe. I'm a math atheist. So I'm guessing it was good. Right? But there was nothing about the human in it. About the human making the judgment. But I think, like I said, I think he would have got there. And I think Pete started that, and now that's, risk assessment. Why did he spike around that tree at the failure point? What did he notice? And why didn't he trust it? I think you've all been there. If you've done this work enough, you've been that moment, you're like, something's wrong here. Like, You gotta stop, right? Like something's wrong here. This isn't right. And we need to address it.
Yeah, no, that's a really great reflection. It really is. I appreciate it for sure.
And again, we all talk about just the listeners too, is really key. Like even your, like you're saying it's not a accusatory thing, it's more of an observation of all other factors that are in there. He obviously a person that, a brilliant mind, that you know that brilliant mind would have gotten the human end of things as well. And had he had that, could it be a little bit different? And that's a good thing to think that, because we are dealing with that when we're in the trees. You know, what you just said before, we've all been, I just went through it last week when I was climbing the Red Oak. You know, it was a little, I did a test, everything else going up, and I always like to switch my speed, and I just do like the crawl, because I'm just like, and sure enough, there was a massive cavity, still okay, but the limb that I was on the weak side, meaning like the cavity's here, the strength is here.
Right.
I'm hanging on this side.
Right.
So I don't know what that is, but I just know that little extra flex, I don't like it.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, so that like talking about it is important to bring that side of the information that's not in the reports as well. And for the listeners, I think it's important to always just try to use all of the information, including what you just said.
Well, I think, when it comes to tree climbing especially, that you can get a skill set and be a relatively good, if not really good climber pretty quickly, right? 6 to 9 months, right? In fact,
Sure.
you can be pretty good. In fact, if you're working with a good climber and you're not, maybe you need another career, right? But what people don't realize is the level of experience it takes to feel that wiggle and to make a judgment call on it. And that doesn't happen in 6 to 9 months. And when I tell people, it's like, well, how long does it take to be a tree climber? I'm like, we're talking a full-fledged, you can make a judgment like that? 6 to 9 years, working it every day. That's what it takes. You can be a good climber, like the technical part of it, to get into the tree relatively quickly.
Yeah, that's
Right. But to have that knowledge and that experience, there's only one way to get that, and that's to do that, right? Unfortunately, some people, they don't get the opportunity, they ignore it or didn't see it, as in Peter's case, for whatever reason, whatever decision he made, right? And I honestly think, if Peter was here today, and I think he would admit that. But I don't know for sure. All we can do is learn from it. From a personal perspective, for me, I went to Peter's funeral because he was laid to rest in upstate New York near his family. And for me, it was moving because of my career before that in the military. There were many people that I never got to go to their funerals. I never got to say goodbye. But I did get to go to Pete's, and I hadn't realized how much not having the opportunity to say goodbye to those people actually affected me until I went to Pete's funeral.
Wow.
And now I do make it a point, if possible, to go when I can to get that closure. There's still a piece of climbing rope tied into a friendship knot on top of Peter's casket, I'm guessing to this day, because that's where I left it.
That's wild.
Everyone else threw roses, I threw rope.
It seems appropriate.
Seemed all right to
I
me.
think,
It seemed like a thing to do.
I think Peter would have chuckled about it.
No,
that's
I
that's why I smiled, and I'm like, I love it.
Yeah, and it's crazy because I remember it's interesting perspective, right? Because like I said, I didn't know. What I remember thinking and feeling is that this is a person who had a level of knowledge that I didn't, and he got hurt. So I better really begin to.
Smart enough.
Yeah, just really, so, yeah. And then the other follow-up is I was doing a tree risk assessment on Big White Oak in Haddonfield. I made an assessment, and then to test myself, because I had just at that time finished track, but I had always, as a licensed tree expert in the state of New Jersey, I had been doing assessments for a while. I have a resistor graph, blah, blah, blah. So I did this workup, and I thought I knew what I saw, and blah, blah. And so then I invited another guy, this guy, Mike LaManna. He's a local guy, and all he does is consulting. And this dude he's just one of those guys. Like, if you're looking to check yourself, this is the dude you bring out. So I remember bringing him out, and I said something to the effect of, I feel like this is an art. It's part there are the mechanics, right? There are the things we know that we see that are quantifiable. And I said, but there's an intuitive part. And I love this because he challenged me on it. He goes, I understand what you're saying. And he said, it's intuition. I understand what you're saying. He said, but can I challenge you? So I was like, absolutely. He's like, how long have you been doing this? 42 years. He's like, your intuition, what you're calling intuition, is a 40-year database. And so that's kind of what you guys are talking about. It's that 6 to 9 years experientially of, and even to a pruning class I just took where, you know, it's pruning and going back. Second cycle, going back. How does the tree respond? When this has happened, when I've seen this formation in a tree with this type of sort of extra wood, this reaction wood, how does it behave? What can it handle? And, you know, I think that experiential quotient, a lot of, I'm curious to see what you guys think. Sometimes there's a friction that exists between like older climbers and younger climbers where we say experiential, and then the young bucks are like, yeah, but I can climb faster, better, further. I can get out on the tips of these. You could never do that. So there's almost this little bit of like friction that exists, but yet there is the experiential component. And I think if people are listening, we're not saying that if you're a younger climber who's skilled, that you're not good. You're very skilled. It's the idea of building that database experientially, if I'm saying that correct. Is that kind of what we're saying?
Yeah, I think so. There's a difference between being good and having mastery. It depends how far you want to take it.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
I'm with you on that. I like to add a little part is, and it's like the cheesy cliche, but like even the mastery, I don't accept it. I'm always working on it every time.
Sure.
I'm like, cause it just doesn't feel right to be like, I got it, because I don't. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I
No,
think that,
I agree.
yeah.
Well, I think part of mastery is admitting that there's always more to learn.
There you go.
Right, you know, and it's like I separated out with arboriculture, with people getting into the field. You could go with the cliches, difference between good and great,
There you go.
right?
Yeah.
You know, it's like the difference between good and great. It's like it's even when you reflect back to the you know, the ITCC, there's a reason that almost all the ITCC champions are over many years' experience. You know, more than 5. And in their 30s, if not older, right? Because the competition's more about mastery than it is speed. Right?
That's
Also those things. And, you know, and there's exceptions to everything.
Sure.
Absolutely. But when you look at that, and then the other part of your question was why should young climbers get involved in tree
Thanks
climbing
for
competitions?
coming back to that. That's awesome.
Because you should, right? If you're not going to compete, then volunteer.
Yeah.
It's just that simple. There's no better way to get integrated into the tribe and to understand it. And if you approach it properly, it will be gratifying and humbling at the same moment. Right? You think you're good? I know somebody that's better.
Yeah.
Let me show them to you.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Right?
absolutely.
Because it's just like when I was stationed in Germany and you're driving the Autobahn and there's no speed limit. It doesn't matter how fast you go, somebody's going faster. Right? In the tree climbing world, if you do it right, the ITC will show you, no matter how good you think you are, somebody's better. Right?
Yeah.
And no matter how good they think they are, somebody's better. So you'll see that. But it's a way to embrace the culture of it, I think, because there are a lot of common interests, a lot of common people, a way to get to know people, to network yourself, to get outside of that bubble that you live in. I think it's important to keep perspective too, and I've had conversations with arborists from other countries, and I'm not entirely sure they believe me, but really, when you look at tree work at the level that we're talking about for the top layer of the ITCC, a small percentage of the quality of tree work that's done in the United States. You know, if I see a crew with hard hats, you know, you're winning the game.
Yeah.
You know, like, so I think it's important for people to remember that when you're going around in those circles, that you're still a small percentage of the total amount of work and people doing the work. It doesn't make you better, it just makes you different, right? I mean, one of the best pieces of training advice I ever got was from my mentor, Bruce Smith. I don't know if you knew Bruce.
I don't.
I know
Bruce
the
worked
name.
as the name.
Bruce with the Arbor Master, wonderful arborist out of Florida, passed away from ALS. But Bruce worked with me a lot after I did a trainer program with Dwayne and Scott in Florida, and Bruce was there as well too. And so I was doing some of my first training experiences, doing some Vermeer seminars.
Yeah.
And Bruce would, so the way it was, is Bruce was there, I was running the seminar, but Bruce was there if I fell apart to pick up the pieces. Keep me from saying stupid shit.
It's good to
Bruce
have a
was just a
friend like
big man, like he just, played football in college, just a big dude.
Yeah.
Briefly was a professional wrestler. But we're sitting down the night before at a restaurant or something, and he said, Tony, he says, you're gonna step out tomorrow. I believe it was somewhere in Florida. Might have been Jacksonville, doesn't matter, right? Was looking at about 100 to 110 attendees they had signed up. He says, you're gonna step out there tomorrow, and quite honestly, you know more than 99% of those people out there. He says, but it doesn't make you better, Tony, it just makes you different.
I like that,
Yeah, so it's,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, it's accumulated knowledge, and
Accumulate knowledge, but also don't let your ego get in the way.
yeah, big time.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think it's a better assessment, right? It's
Yeah.
like, hey man, don't, and it sounds like he would, and I'm saying this, jokingly, but he'll put you in your place if you do.
Right.
Because you said he's a big dude,
Yeah, well.
he can handle himself. So.
Yeah, he would have never done that. It was just, and I think he knew that I understood the lesson.
Yeah.
And I think I understood he just articulated it well.
Yeah.
And you have to keep that in mind. Just because I have my experience and you got your notes on it, it doesn't really mean anything except to me, right? I'm not better than anybody. My career path, the lines I've chosen, the choices have been different,
Yeah,
right? Doesn't make me better, doesn't make me worse.
sure.
Yeah.
No, and listen, I appreciate your heart in that. For me, what actually makes the podcast though is that, right? It's
Sure.
everybody's list, and I got a few back in here, is a little bit different. And it's fascinating that we wind up here having a conversation, and you hit on something, you're like, yeah, we were having dinner, the night before. Those moments, they're the moments.
Oh, yeah.
Right, it's those connections, it's sitting down like this, having this conversation. And what I love about this is when even guys that I know, these conversations are always deep in that. And the next time I see you, it'll be a depth of understanding of who you are better than I had when we walked in the door. That's valuable to me as a person. Selfishly, why I like doing this. There's the selfish motivation, but the idea behind it is, and I mean, you're doing a podcast, so you're kind of doing the same thing, right? It's like hopefully the benefit is that someone's listening and maybe they have an aha moment, or they feel encouraged or edified or not so alone. A couple of the conversations we had at the Arbor Expo, was quite literally very, very small operators. It was their dad, and now it's their dad and them and a person. And I'm in a pickup and I'm driving and I'm listening to this, and I'm in the mountains of Vermont, and I'm thinking, man, wow, I'm not alone. There's other people doing this on a bigger scale. That to me is motivation enough to want to have these conversations. But,
And I think that's the lesson, that's the benefit you can get from the tree climbing comps.
Sure.
And you don't have to do the international, the chapter ones are just as good.
yeah.
International's fine, but you don't have to go that length. And just, seeing that other people do it and learning from them. It's like, as a climber, I mean, how many times was I in the work climb at the Pendel chapter behind Jimmy, watch him do the tree. Well, I can do that. I go up there, no, I can't do that. And then I go up to Jimmy and go like, how the hell did you do that?
Yeah, that's great.
And he'd laugh at me, and it was
That's awesome. I love
Cool.
that. That's
And
great.
it's like, I can do that. Like, no, I can't do that. I mean, like I said, because I never had the opportunity to compete in an ITCC, but I climbed pretty much every work climb tree for 10 years before.
That's amazing. That's so
Climbed it.
cool. Yeah.
Right. And the other thing that I found out about, especially at the ITCC level, was you're working with really good climbers. We just didn't win that year.
There you go.
2006, I went and volunteered in Minnesota. I lost to Jimmy in our Masters Challenge here by 3 points.
Wow.
If I hadn't gotten lost, if they hadn't had that extra rivet in the tree that made me go that way, I don't know.
Yeah,
That's great.
But you know, it's like, so like we're the second son climbers, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yep.
How America was founded on kids that didn't get, you know, didn't inherit the wealth, so they had to go somewhere else, right? So they came to America.
There you go. It's-
Maybe that's the, but yeah, just the amount of talent that you work with,
Exactly.
even if you're not competing.
All right, so Brooke and I are excited because we have a sponsor on board for the next couple months here. It's Pete Nieves Sosa, the Crane Man. So Pete, the Crane Man, his company is called the Crane Man Inc. If you are looking for, it's funny because the reality of it is a lot of crane companies do all types of crane work, setting trusses and things and signs, and then will occasionally step out into tree work. But it's an oddity for them. With the Crane Man Inc., what you have is that formula is inverted. The Crane Man Inc. actually specializes in crane-assisted tree removals. You can find them at the cranemaninc.com. They also, Pete is so invested in this that he also runs a school once a year, and this is something we can even tap Tony for, crane safety climber school. So he basically is training people how to do crane-assisted tree removal, specializes in it, and has a company whereby he's assisting people in the region. So if you're in the Philly metro area, and you are looking for someone that has really just an inordinate amount of experience, his operators are all top-notch to do crane-assisted tree removals, pardon me. Definitely look at the Crane Man Inc. And Tony, you've been helping out with crane school now for a while.
Yeah, off and on, one
Yeah.
in town.
Yeah,
Yeah, it was actually just, we had Pete on our podcast last week, I talked with.
Yeah,
It was good. It was just me, so Dwayne couldn't make it.
Yeah.
His son's getting married. But yeah, it was interesting. I've known Pete for a while. It was fun to hear the background story.
Yeah.
On how it all started. Because I knew he started it and getting into it.
Yep.
But it was good. Yeah, the climber school's awesome. The crane climber school's awesome.
it's cool because it's got that hands-on component and the level of instructors. I'm always humbled when I go there, just by the level of people and the tribe that
Yeah.
you so graciously talk about. I think it's super vital. But yeah, we just want to thank Pete because he's sponsoring the podcast, so we're super grateful for that. I wanted to give him a shout out and tell him we're appreciative of that and grateful. And also, he's a good dude, so it helps.
Oh, yeah.
He's one of us, and he's a tree guy by association.
But actually,
You know?
through cranes.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
So
Yeah.
please, y'all out there, listen, if you're in the metro Philly area and you need actual crane work, look up the Crane Man Inc. And if you're looking for training, we'll probably touch on that at a later date. We'll talk about crane safety climber school, all you can find on the Crane Man website. So thanks to Pete.
Yeah. I think
Yeah,
it
thanks,
has
Pete.
its own website now too.
What's that?
I think the crane school has its
Yeah.
own website.
Yep.
now.
Okay.
So if you look at craneclimberschool.com,
Yeah.
I think it's.
Yes. No, it's
Kim
awesome.
does a good job.
Oh, yeah, big time. It's been a good experience for me. So, it's funny, when you mentioned, Peter had that vibe of, you met him and you felt like you knew him.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like Rick's like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, Rick Hughes.
yeah, it's funny, because there's a lot of people that know Rick, and if they talk to him at all, it's like, he makes you feel like he's your best friend, you know? I'm like, man, Pete, you know,
Yeah.
Rick and I are buds. We're boys, whatever. It's like, yeah, me too. It's like, you know,
Yeah.
he's like that. When you get with him, when you're with him in that moment, just having a one-to-one, it's like you're the most important thing right there.
Yeah.
And that's just, he brings a lot of presence of being just in that present moment,
Yeah.
which I think kind of ties into what we're saying. Like, it's so easy to be distracted in a conversation and trying to talk over people and get our point across. And we can do the same thing, like, we're in the room, my phone's sitting here, we're having a conversation, and I'm like, yeah, man, you know, and like, to bring our full presence to bear on the situation.
Yeah, it is a skill. I have a good friend of mine, Pat, I've known him for probably going on 40 years, and he's one of the few people he's one of those people that can ask, not a stranger, but somebody doesn't know that well, an uncomfortable question and get an answer.
Oh, yeah.
I know he has that ability to ask an uncomfortable question and be like, I feel like I have to kind of answer it.
It's like, do you even know them?
I don't.
Exactly. Why would you ask him that?
Yeah, exactly.
You know, so yeah, it's a skill that I wish I had.
Yeah.
I don't think I'm very good at it.
I'm just sitting here thinking, what uncomfortable question can I ask you? You know?
Exactly. Yeah, it's you.
Yeah, so briefs or boxers, you know, or commando, you know.
Well, you get to a certain point in life with my career choices, where there's no feelings or tears left. It's all gone. There's
Yeah,
nothing
right.
you could say to hurt my feelings because there's none left.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's that classic, I have no more F's to give kind of thing, you know? Like,
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's funny.
yeah, no, that was gonna spin off into something and my brain just completely went sideways on that one, so that's great. I had something, I swear it was gonna be really profound too, and it just slipped out of my head.
So
So I don't know if you have anything you wanna jump on that we don't think we covered?
Well, yeah, no, I mean, we definitely touched in on a lot of things. Yeah, because like I said, for me, you already answered it, but so the typical, I would assume the typical idea about military is that you learn the structure, the operating system. But it sounds like that didn't happen for you. You created that by going down the path that you chose through philosophy and stoicism. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I think so. I think, you know, when I enlisted, I was just 18,
Yeah, of course.
17. What do you know about life? Well, you think you know everything.
Uh-huh.
And it's just the military structure is fun. I learned a lot about leadership there.
You did,
I learned
okay.
a lot about myself. I wouldn't trade the experiences. I wouldn't wish them on anybody. But then, you know, understand my experiences, like why I served overseas in Germany. I was actually in Germany when the wall fell in 1989.
Oh, wow, yeah.
Which was awesome for the rest of the world, but I was in a ditch waiting for the Red Army to come across for 3 days straight, right? Because that was our job. I was stationed, we were 53 kilometers from the Czechoslovakian border at the time. And now there was no border, so, you know, the Cold War, it just suddenly ended. Like, okay, so.
That's
But then I was, because we didn't have a job there when, in 1990, when the Persian Gulf and Saddam Hussein invaded Kuwait, they sent us there because we didn't have a job anyway. So my experiences were a little bit different from that standpoint. So I learned a lot about, well, you'd hope you'd learn a lot about life in those situations. So yeah, it was different. There was nothing, I thought that I could make myself fit into that structure, and it just wasn't possible. I don't think I could have done, not at that level. There might have been ways to do it, but it just wasn't possible for me.
It's interesting.
And it's like I said, just because of the way the dates and military action lined up, when it came my time to ETS out, they really didn't want me back. They weren't looking, because after a major military action, they're always looking to downsize. Usually they're like, they'll throw you all kinds of incentives, like, hey, we'll give you this bonus, or we'll send you here. They just wanted people out, not me in particular.
Sure.
But people in general.
Wow.
And my dates lined up almost perfectly. Like, the paperwork was already going through the channels. They're like, see you, son, thanks for the help.
Wow.
Right? And I'm like, the fuck?
That's crazy.
Yeah. What the hell happened here?
Huh.
Because I was literally, you know, I was out back on the street in July. In April, we were still engaged in mine declaring semi-combat operations. In February, we were in combat.
Okay, yeah.
So I'm out in July going,
Yeah, that's a culture shift.
I'm not sure what the fuck just happened
Yeah,
here.
yeah.
So my experiences were different. And you know, you're in your early 20s.
Yeah,
I didn't know.
That's wild.
You know?
Yeah.
I know how I handled it. I drank a lot and worked hard.
Mm-hmm. Seems appropriate.
Well, yeah, why
Yeah.
not? Why not do that?
Yeah.
That'll work. And it did for a while.
Yeah.
You know, it's obviously not a long-term solution.
Well, the fact is, if you're gonna do it, your 20s is the time to do it, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
There
Not
is-
in your 40s or 50s.
There is that.
Yeah.
And there were a couple times there where, now I'd met my girlfriend then, but my wife now. Had I not met her when I did, I probably would have just gone back in.
Oh, roger that.
I
Okay.
probably just
Yeah.
would have, because outside was not doing me any favors.
Yeah, that's cool.
I was not a part of anything I needed to be part of, you know, it was was just a very, you missed that tribe, right?
Yeah, and that would be the follow-up, is I love that you brought that up because, without going too far into it, but the idea is that realistically, humans in general are not, we are conditioned for tribes. And I think it's like, it's supposed to be like up to 120 people is really the general, like, the idea of, but this day and age, it's not possible, but we're definitely not meant to be isolated individuals. And that alone is the reason why I love that you brought that up, and also giving it to the listeners why you should go to competition scene, either as a competitor or volunteer. I'll even take as a spectator, but I feel like you kind of get away with it being a spectator. Just volunteer, help out.
Yeah,
You
be
know,
part of the tribe. Right?
There you go. You be part of the tribe, correct? So I just wanted to bring that, back up again, because I feel like you've nailed on that a couple times, and I really love that a lot.
Yeah, I said for me, I don't know, like see it from my perspective, but that's why, I needed to have that. And it's not that I'm an introverted person. I don't need a lot of friends, but you do need a structure around you.
Yeah, sure.
And when I was, in my early 20s and back and roaming around, well, who am I supposed to talk? Like, understand that now the support system for veterans returning is much better.
Yeah.
When I had my experiences, the United States Army military in general hadn't been in combat since the Vietnam War.
Yeah.
So it was well over 30 years.
Yeah.
Okay.
And my expectation was, well, if you go that, you're just somehow going to be fucked up. What I hadn't realized is you can do that and be normal. It took me 30 years to figure that one out. Right? You can go and have those experiences and not be a bad person.
Right.
They don't necessarily break you.
Yeah.
Some they do, and I get that. I fully
Yeah.
understand that.
Yeah.
Some people cannot truly assimilate those types of things. And it doesn't, like I said, it's not bad, not good, it's not weak, it's not strong, it just is.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. Nobody told me there was not the support system around.
Yeah.
Where there is now, where I think that there's a lot. I think that's too, it's when I look at my military experiences in those situations, it's fortunate that the type of fighting I had to do was much more conventional in black and white. I mean, the enemy wore uniforms, it was not what these men and women are experiencing today, where you just strap a bomb to a dog and they send it at you. That would be a whole nother level of bullshit. So I'm not trying to compare my experiences at all.
Right. No,
And I'm glad that those men and women that are returning have that support today, for sure. Right. And I hope that they use it.
Yeah.
That if you need it, absolutely. Because you get those things. But yeah, those things were fundamental into how I saw the world. And some of it was me before, some of it was me after. Right? It always just a blending of your environment, nature and nurture. Does it matter?
Yeah, it's an amalgam.
Right. How those things go. Like I said, I wouldn't trade the experiences, but I wouldn't wish them on anybody.
Yeah.
I know, right? Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
I don't think you should have to learn about life and death so blatantly, so early in life. But I don't regret doing it.
Yeah.
I think it would be different had I not had those experiences.
That's a good perspective. Complete pivot. Because while I have you here, there's two things I definitely want to get your insights on. And these are classic things that I've been asking almost everyone. One, just indulge me on a quick aside. So a lot of young folks come in, they apply for a job. Now, my kids have worked in the company. I have two daughters that all through their high school and college experiences, they came in and they worked summers. My son decided he didn't want to go to college and spend money on college. He wants to come work for the business. And now he's in his third year, entering his fourth. And there are times I'm, oh man, is this really what I want for my kid? Because maybe I don't process the stress of business ownership all that well over the years. I'm getting better as I go. I'm proud of this trade. I'm proud of this tribe to a large degree. I do like what I do. I still love looking at trees, creating solutions for people, pruning trees, like working on that living organism. I'm curious to hear what you'll say when I look at other trades, electrician, plumber, all of that, and then arboriculture. Number one, can we compete with those other trades? Should we think of it like that? Because maybe my thinking's flawed in the first place. how or why can we, and I'm using my son as an example because he's my kid and I feel a specific type of way about that, which is a little bit separate. But in general terms, young person coming in, I'm proud of this trade, but how do we compete in terms of what we can offer and how do we bring that level of recruit, I guess, for lack of a better term, into the fold? That's one question, and then one I want to just get out for later is like we talk about injuries, fatalities, things of that nature, and this is just a theme. And because you're a trainer and with your experience, I think this is a unique question for someone with your level of knowledge and experience. Is how do we do better? So let's maybe start with our trade. I say like it's one of the few remaining romantic trades. There's something romantic about it. Like almost like being, this is I probably shouldn't even say this word in relation to church, but like a cowboy. We know we don't want cowboys, but I mean in terms of that sort of, there's a rough and tumble and the ropes and the dust and the elements and the being outside and I'm conflating a lot here. I'm spiraling, but the point being like, how do we compete with other trades with structured pay, things of that nature to make this a viable trade for people because we love it so much. I would love others to love it.
Yeah, I think.
Or should I not think of it like that?
No, I think that we basically just need to model what they have, right? Because one of the things about the other trades, you look like a power lineman. I've worked with a lot of power linemen as an arboricultural trainer.
Yeah.
Arbor Canada, right? You can walk into a lineman shop and close your eyes, and it's just like an arborist shop, but the topics are a little bit different, cut from the same cloth.
Okay.
Same type of people, right? But when you look at it, what the allure of a power lineman is, there's that very clear progression that you could get from apprentice to journeyman. And with that comes the structure and the pay and the benefits and all the things that you want from a profession, right? Whereas arboriculture kind of lacks that. You can do that in arboriculture, but there's no path. Like you gotta build it yourself, right? And I think where trades like that, a lot of the other trades, like when they're addressed at the high school level, the vo-tech level, I think it's more effective because there's a lot of people that don't even know. I still run into people to this day say, "You're a what? An arborist?"
Same.
Yeah, I climb trees. Oh, line clearance. No. Like in your front yard, that tree. They don't even know it exists. Now, for me, that's a tough perspective because I've never known that. Right. I can remember going to work with my dad, drag me to work, and I'm like, it's just all tree work, right? It's just, what, you mean people don't climb trees? So yeah, I think that structure's there. I think the good side is you get the structure, and if you can get earlier access, I think we could do better reaching out to women, because 50% of our population is not represented in the workforce. And some of the best arborists and climbers I know are women. What is it, Dr. Ball's statistic? You're 80% less likely to have an accident if you have a woman on your crew, something like that. It's outrageous.
That's crazy.
Just simply because women tend to be more low introspective and slow the down and less testosterone poisoning, let's say. It's just the way it is. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's good. Like I said, and you know them as well. There's some wonderful women climbers and artists. Absolutely. It's highly underrepresented in this industry, right? So I think that having the downside with that then becomes the regulation and the structure, and the parts of things that a lot of people get into tree work because of their blatant disregard for authority, right? Don't want to have to put up with things, but I think you can have your cake and eat it too.
Sure.
I really think you can, right? I don't. There are power linemen out there that work for private companies.
Yeah.
There are. Yeah, you don't have to work for a municipality or a big whatever, to be a power lineman, right? Yeah. And I think that the same would be true. I would like to see a little bit more structure around that, a little bit more accountability, right? Because I find it amazing to this day, like, the average homeowner hired just anybody to come in to cut the tree down in their backyard, but they're not getting an unqualified electrician who just has a pickup truck and some screwdrivers to install their hot water heater. They could burn my house down. Well, yeah, I could drop this tree on your house too.
Yeah.
Right? Tell me what's worse, right?
Yeah.
Pick your poison. So yeah, I think that ultimately I think the key to get people into the industry and keep them there is to start getting them earlier. Because when we asked the question on the Tree Action podcast, your first memories to tree, even people that, like a lot of arborists, they didn't get into it till later. Like they appreciated trees, they liked trees. They might have been heading towards like the green industry.
Sure.
But they didn't know about tree work till they were taking a hort class, and they were like, "Hey, well, there's people over there doing climbing trees.
Yeah.
I want to take that class."
Yeah.
Well, you're already 20-something.
Yep.
So I think that there would be benefits, and I think that you honestly can't have your cake and eat it too.
Okay.
And I think that we're massively misrepresented, and it's I always find it amazing that you have to go out and beg, and like I said, you want your hot water heater installed, and it gives you an estimate for $3,000. People are like, okay. But they want their tree work done, which is infinitely more complex and hazardous, and that you're scraping for $750. Like,
Agreed.
grossly underpaid what it is, right?
Wow.
I even look at my own career, and this is not, I'm not making judgments or criticism, but when I go out and train somebody, I have a day rate. And my wife used to work at Pep Boys in their corporate headquarters in Philadelphia, right? And they'd have these IT guys come in, good trainers, and their day rate was 7 times what my day rate is. Wow. And they have no hazard. They're not, there's no, their hazard level is very low. Their risk level is very low. And it's not to say what they do isn't valuable, but why isn't mine that same?
Yeah.
But it can't bear that way, right? Because
Yep.
can't tell you how many people, I've worked for clients and they find out I have a degree in philosophy, like, well, you're wasting your time here. I'm like, says who? Like, what's wrong with my career?
Yeah.
Right? You think I have to be stupid to do this work?
That's right.
Like, is that what you assume? Like, I've never been discriminated against. That's the closest I've ever come, and I didn't like it.
Yeah.
I could see why people would start revolutions. Right?
Oh, yeah.
If I was truly discriminated against, I'd get fucking angry.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yes.
Because it's just not right.
Yeah.
Oh, I have an education, I'm wasting it. Why? Because
Yeah.
I'm climbing your tree.
Yeah. And I've had those experiences. I've had one of my sort of friends, acquaintances back in the day said, I think to my kid at some point, what are you gonna do? Or I was like, anybody can cut a tree down. And well, there it is, because he was like, going and he's, doing research and this and that. I'm like, really? And man, that just fired me up. I was like, really? Let me drag your fat rear end out here and see you do it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I have that same belligerent streak.
Yeah, I get that way.
Yeah,
Whatever.
but
Don't pass your judgment on
yeah,
me.
exactly. Or are you, at some point you need to get a real job. I've heard that one a lot.
Well, I tell people that all the time, but I like to think I can say that from a wealth of experience.
Right.
33 decades of screwing around.
Yeah.
A fake job. No, I'm just joking.
But no, it's,
The wonderful part of, and where I think that one of the biggest benefits come is you get to a certain skill level, knowledge, experience-wise. You can make a lateral move anywhere in the world, financially and professionally, you can make a lateral.
Yep.
Right. And one of the things, I had to learn with, the family company was with my brothers to understand that if, Arborist Enterprises went out of business, I just go get another job. Wouldn't have taken that much.
Yep.
Right? A couple phone calls. I could have found work.
Sure.
Right. My brother would have lost, everything. Been in severe financial hit.
100%.
So he's making decisions on a different basis than I am.
Absolutely.
And you have to appreciate that. Right? And I will say, and people often ask me about the family company, working at a family company. My answer would be, no, don't do it. Just joking. My true advice would be, and this is where I've seen it work the best, is if your son's going to stick with the business, tell him to go away somewhere for a couple of years, work someplace else, and come back.
Wow.
Go away.
Yeah.
3-4 years, good company. You don't got to go risk your life or anything. Then come back.
Interesting.
It's not that it's necessary, but if you had to ask me, that's what I'd tell you.
Yeah, that's awesome, and I wish we had that luxury, but that's what Jake did.
I was just thinking.
Jake went through that,
Jake
Glenn
was-
sent Jake over to Aspen, and he worked with Mark two full years, I think.
I think, it's two
And then
years.
it was weird. It was like the other thing was it was like the day after he showed up, Sandy hit.
Yeah.
He just went 1,000 miles an hour, like,
Well,
welcome aboard. We're doing this, sleeping in trucks and
I've seen that pattern work out again and again. A good friend of mine, Lucas Drews, he runs a tree company up in It was his father's company. He left, went to work down for, Hartwood, I believe.
Oh, okay.
I think he worked with Hartwood.
North Carolina.
3-4 years, came back. He now owns a company. He bought it from his father and runs it.
Yeah.
I've seen that pattern work a couple times. Not that it's necessary, but it is a technique.
I would imagine that that's a great thing, because then Mason even talks about maybe doing some days, like go to work with Rick, go down, work with his team, but no, I think, I don't discount that at all.
You know, see it, you have to see it from the outside looking in as best as possible.
Yeah.
It's easy to get lost. And, you know, I never wanted to run, well, I technically run my own business. I refuse to have employees.
Yeah.
That's where I draw the line.
Yeah.
Because it's all, your own business is great, so you get a damn employee. Oh, shit.
Yeah.
No, but I never wanted that level of business involvement.
Yeah.
That was just not what I wanted to do.
I totally get it. And it's funny, because one of the things I heard, and this is a little thing that cuts a little bit different, in circles where you have a business, where you have employees, like some of the higher ups say, never take advice from someone who's never made payroll, who's never had to make a payroll, because it's just a different.
Well, yeah, absolutely. Well, it's like never trust a skinny chef. What's wrong with your food?
Yeah,
Look at it.
yeah, you're not even eating it. Yeah.
It's I mean.
But yeah, and I can see that.
It's a different dichotomy, it's a different,
Right.
not dichotomy, but it's a different, perspective.
There is. I mean, it's amazing how so many, tree businesses are started by people that are good tree people but have no clue about business. And you either learn it or you don't. Right? And you can either figure it out and be self-taught or not.
Yep.
I tell people that it's like, if you're gonna go to school and want to start, get into arboriculture, throw some business classes in there.
100%.
Yes.
Because you might get to the point where it's like, there's nobody good to work for around here. I'll just do it.
Yeah.
That's a great.
Yep.
That's a great way to do it. That's not going away. You wonder with the way tree companies are going and getting bought up and sold. The mom and pop is not. I don't think it's going away.
I hope not.
My hope is that the skill and safety level of the mom and pop will elevate because of it's different now.
Yeah.
It's not so much the Wild West.
Yeah.
It's always going to be. Sure. And I think, but just from a straight business standpoint, like to run a successful tree company, you need 3 things: trees, money, and people. And if you're missing any one of those 3, you have a ceiling.
Yeah.
Right. I'm not saying that you can't run a tree company in rural Arizona, but if you ain't got a lot of trees, you got a ceiling. If you ain't got a lot of people, you got a ceiling. If you don't have expendable income, you got a ceiling. That's why areas like this, and you have all 3: you have trees, money, and people.
That's right.
So that you can grow and expand something. So if you're going to start a business in your hometown, you might be limited from the very beginning. You're not going to start a aspen tree care
Sure.
in rural New Mexico at 9,000 feet.
Yeah.
You're not going to do it.
Yeah.
Right? The environment isn't there. You just can't do it. Can you run a business? Sure.
Yeah.
But how big? Right? I always run into people be like, I've done $10,000 removals.
Mhm.
Done. It's not uncommon.
Yeah.
People are like, how do you get 10,000? Because we have the 3 things: trees, money, and people.
Yeah.
Why can't you get a $10,000 removal? That's because you're missing the money.
Yeah.
That's it.
Usually it is, right? It's,
It's wild too. Those are a whole other conversation, because I'll see them happen online, and sometimes more often than not now, I resist chiming in. But what I see is those problems are not uncommon anywhere. They're common everywhere. There's this guy and he's a hack, and it's like, yep, here too. I can't do it with the pruning. Yep, here too. And at crane school, I was talking to a young man. He's like, the removals, it's where it's at, and this and that. And I'm looking at him, shaking. He's like, what? I'm like, not my company. I'm like, we're prune heavy. Really? You can get money for pruning? I'm like, way more. Really? I'm like, the removals are a race to the bottom. Here's the tree. How much to cut it down? How much to cut it down? How much to cut it down? And they take the lower number and they think, oh, we'll just hire the guy when the pruning, it's people, they don't want some hack touching their tree. We called you because you're knowledgeable. And then my man hour per rake can reflect what I want to be as a company. And so we command that money in the marketplace, and it's just a different. So we're doing our part in whatever small way we can. But,
but those are hard-learned lessons through years of experience. You could get a way head start.
yeah.
Just learning some basic business principles.
Yes.
I agree. Like the 80-20 rule. 80% of your business comes from 20% of your clientele. It works every time.
Mhm.
Every every time. 80/20 repeats. It's one of those numbers, you get a numerology thing, it starts repeating all over the place.
It's a universal truth.
80/20. So it's
20% of the people do 80% of the work.
There you go.
Right, well, there's nothing wrong with starting a small tree company and keeping it small and being an owner operator.
Sure.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
You know, that doesn't need to go away, and you can have good, just, at the end of it, after 30 years of work, what do you want?
Right.
Because if you just stay like that, you're gonna end up with some equipment and a client list, and not a lot of value.
No.
You know, like, and that's fine, if that's, you put your money in your savings accounts and you vacation, go retire someplace with no trees, perfect.
Yeah.
I get it, there's nothing wrong with that. But don't try and compare that to somebody that wanted to build something that could be sold
Right.
Yeah, sure.
and leave a, you know, just, you know, either, both ways are fine. So I don't think you know, sometimes it's sad to see the smaller tree companies get kind of swallowed up or gobbled by the bigger fish, but it's part of the way it is.
Yeah.
I don't think the structure's changing much.
Yeah.
I think you'll still have them. My hope is that as some of those bigger fish eat the smaller fish, that the bigger fish raise the bar a little bit, so that when people do, the small fish start coming in, they're coming in at a higher level.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah. And I can see that. I can see that happening.
Because your employee draw is the same, right? People that's not changing. It's not like we're importing people.
Right.
Well, hopefully that, because now maybe they have a little bit of level of experience at a better company with a safety program and PPE and a safety culture, and then they go to work for a startup, because, oh, this sounds interesting, I can get away from the big, you know,
Yeah.
I'm gonna do this, and maybe they're coming in at a higher level.
Yeah.
Where now, it's like, you know, back in the day, you go down to the bar and see who's sober-ish.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're sober enough, come on.
Yeah. Yeah.
I got some brush to drag.
Yeah. When was the last time you had a drink? A couple hours ago. Great.
Perfect. Get in the truck.
Yeah.
So the other thing that I was just curious is just like from a safety and accident standpoint. Like, I know it's a big question, it's a broad topic that you could spend hours on, but in terms of just doing better, like, because I haven't heard the recent numbers this past year, but you know, usually I'm in, like, when Dr. Ball summarizes and brings, the numbers typically don't change a lot. So my thing is like in general terms, wax philosophical about how do we just do better? How do we keep each other safe? How do we go home at night intact with all of our digits in the proper places and keep our blood in our bodies and all the things? Like, how do we do better?
I don't know. It is, yeah, the percentages don't change, the numbers go up and down a little bit, but they've stayed the same for the last, 26 years, since 2000, right? They go up and down. You do see some trends. I think electrical hazards, where you see them less from electrical hazards, I think, in some standards. There have been improvements. The problem is that we get lumped in with everybody.
I got
You could just pull out the numbers from companies with safety policies.
Yeah.
I don't know, there's probably not one single answer.
Yeah.
I think ultimately, insurance companies are gonna have to play a part, because companies don't shut down until they can't get insurance. And, we'll not say names to protect the guilty, but there's companies in this area that were shut down because they couldn't be insured anymore, and that's good.
Yeah.
We're a better industry and people are alive because of it.
Yeah.
It just is, right? I think that consumer education to a point can help, right? Like I said, you're not just gonna hire any old dude with a pickup truck that says electrician on the side and have him rewire a house.
Yeah.
You're gonna wanna see certain things.
Yeah.
Are you certain, do you have these things?
Yeah.
I think that's part of it. I think part of that comes through in the municipal sector. I think one of the best things the municipal sector can do is set a standard for a community. Be like, can set that standard and say, look, this is, these are the companies you should be working with, because this is who we work with.
Yeah, so we just say, the municipality I work at, we do that as far as, everybody has to register and be licensed, and then, but there's, luckily, the forester that we have does enforce it too.
Right.
That's the other half.
Yeah, the other half is.
But yes, to your point, that is absolutely doable for all municipalities. You just need the enforcement.
Right. Yeah, I think, it's like I said, people often ask, well, what tree company should I get? Well, you can tell them all the standard stuff that you look at, but say, well, what town do you live in? What does your town use? Now, that's not always, depends on where you're at, right? The bigger municipalities, because you have things like risk management, insurance certificates, all this stuff that has to be handled on a big scale that isn't handled for mom and pop.
Yep.
Oh, yeah, do those types of things. I think the TCIA accreditation program was good, that can start to put apples in line, you're comparing apples to apples that way.
Yeah.
The Certified Arborist program has had, an effect on it as well too. I think ultimately, businesses have to be started by people that are not going to fall into that. The way pilots call it is normalization of deviance. So normalization of deviance is like, if your approach distance to the wire is 3 feet, but you decide, well, it's 2 feet away, that's far enough, and you've deviated from the norm, the next time you're gonna deviate more, because it's now accepted that 2 feet's accepted. And that's what they mean when say safety culture has to come from the top down. Well, so if we get people that are starting these small mom and pop businesses with that mindset, then we can start to make changes. Right? Because you can do this work for 30 years, make plenty of money and not die. More evidence of it. You don't have to get hurt. I think the attitude, you get the big slogans are, path to zero. It's just not a realistic out. But that doesn't mean you have to go to work expecting to die or get hurt. Right. Things are gonna happen.
Yeah.
Right. My experience is when you prepare for them and plan, the consequences are much less.
Yeah.
Right. What's as good? What would have been a good story is not a tragedy. Right. What would have just been, the mirror broken off the truck is now a tree on someone's head.
Yeah. It's crazy because when I think back to one of the major things that I had happen to me, I had a tree fail under me, like beneath my feet, and it could have been a whole lot worse. But when I reflected back on this is 25 years ago, I did realize that all the things I put in place are actually what saved me. I wasn't tied into that tree. I was tied into an adjacent tree. I did like all these little things that I did. It was like, oh, the knot that I was on, which I was on a VT instead. So the way it reacted to the rope I was on, like all these little things in retrospect, I was like, actually, I got lucky. And of course there was some fate involved, but yeah, by the same token, all the things in that continuing education, and that's something I want to just kind of, I don't know if we're going to wrap or whatever, but like, I just took the prescriptive pruning qualification that Dr. Gilman and Lindsay Purcell put on. Mm-hmm. And I remember, and I love this about life. I love it's like when I did train the trainer. I remember walking in, and there was a little element, I'm like, well, I am a trainer, because I was training for the CAA. We had Dwayne and Ed come in, and they did the full 60-hour thing. And I walked in, and I wasn't like puffy about it, but I walked in and I thought, all right, well, let's see like what these guys are going to teach me kind of thing. And like in 5 minutes, I was like, okay, this is going to be great. I'm an idiot, and I'm here to learn. And it was the richest training experience I've ever had in my career was the train-to-trainer, bar none. But I just did the PPQ, and I say all that to say the same thing. I walk in there, I'm like, okay, I already consider pruning to be sort of the flagship, the crown jewel of what we do as a company. And I think that I know some things about pruning. And I go in and I'm there literally with the guy that wrote the book.
Right.
And he starts to name and do terms and talk about things, and I'm like immediately sucked in. And like, this is gonna be second level, and it was. But here I am, 40 some years in, 35 years in my own business, consider myself, some high level pruner, and my doors get blown off in terms of new information, knowledge, terms, and everything. So I'm a big proponent of continuing ed and just staying in the game and learning and growing, because we could have all stopped learning 20 years ago and continued to make a living, right, with what we knew. So why is it important?
Right.
Why is it important? What does it mean to you to continue to learn?
Yeah, you have to. I can't tell you how many times I run into people say, oh yeah, I got 10 years chainsaw experience. I'm like, no, you got 6 months, 20 times over.
Yeah.
Again and again. So you have to kind of push yourself. It relates back to for me, in my career, the way that happened for me, that constant push and drive. Some of it's internal. just some of the way I'm wired.
Yep.
Some of it is also but the bigger thing was going to the climbing comps.
Yeah.
And, standing there and saying, oh yeah, I watched Jimmy do it, like I can do that, big guy can do it.
Yeah.
But if I hadn't tried, I wouldn't have known,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So that humbling experience and really that on. And I think when it comes to, we talked earlier about things you can control and the things you can't control.
Mhm.
Right? And when you look at it as a safety trainer, I deal with two sets of numbers. One set of numbers is what Dr. Ball produces. That's all the accidents, the incidents, all of
Yep.
those things happen. And it's an important set of numbers, but it's not the most important set of numbers. The most important set of numbers is a set of numbers that I'll never be able to give you. That's the people like you, me, and Brick that have done the right thing the right way and didn't die or get hurt. And those are the numbers we can control. We just can't quantify them.
Mm.
Oh, that was good.
Right, so there's nothing wrong with looking at the accident incidents, but don't spend your time looking at failure, look at success.
Wow, yeah.
Right?
That's
So,
my
and
job.
duplicate that.
So people can start to understand, when you have that incident, all those things that came together for you, that's all that years of experience. And we've had those, everyone that's done this work long enough has had that experience where something happens and you're like, I don't know why I did it, but I'm glad I did it. I'll tell you a classic story. We were doing a lightning struck pin oak tree. And it was in the middle of a big lawn, and the guy's lawn was like the 15th green at Augusta in his mind. Right? And it was a 65-foot tree, 30-inch trunk, classic pin oak. And it was lightning struck and just like died, like dead, tumbleweeds blown by.
Cool.
Yeah.
Too big to just drop in his yard. Put the crane. Didn't want to put the crane all the way down in there, so we'll just rig the top out. It'll be a trunk piece. I'll drop it on the ground, cut it up into pieces, lift it out of the crane. Done by one.
Yeah.
Get down there, and then you could see where it was struck, and it came down. And at the trunk, there was maybe an inch, 3/4 of an inch of split. You could almost get 2 inches of handsaw into the root system a little bit.
Yeah.
And this was not too long after Peter Donzelli's incident. And I said, guys, go up and grab me some of all the ratchet straps you got. About every 6 foot, we put a ratchet strap. It's a lesson I learned from Glenn. It's what we call a feel-good thing. Glenn always called them feel-good things. I work with Glenn. Sometimes you do things, Tony, just because they feel good. Having those straps on just made me feel good. Crane removal went fine. It was like 6 cuts. It wasn't that big of a deal, right? Come on down, take my straps off, fell the tree, hits the ground, splits into 7 pieces. I'm looking at it going, I don't know if those ratchet straps held that fucking thing together. I was damn glad they were there.
Yeah.
And it just did it. I didn't need to put them on there,
Yeah.
but I did. Right, and that was a valuable, tangible lesson for me that I can refer back to. So now I do lots of feel-good things.
Yeah, I like that.
Another lesson along those lines is in 2002, I had the opportunity to go out to the Olympic Peninsula and climb the Bogachil spruce, big tree climb that Michael Oxman put together. Actually, my brother and sister-in-law bought the trip at the auction, tree auction, side auction the year before, gave it to me and my wife went out. So anyway, got there with a bunch of climbers. Ken, Brad, Dwayne was there, Nancy was there, Michael Tane, all just great people. But then, I don't know if you remember Knut Philpay. Remember Knut?
That name rings a bell.
Knut was big in the climbing scene, still is an arborist. He does more tower work and stuff now.
Okay.
But just a really good German arborist. In fact, when you picture a German guy, you're picturing Knut. He just is, right? He's got the accent and everything.
Yeah.
So when you close your eyes and think German guy,
Yeah.
it's him, right?
Gotcha.
Okay.
So you can see him now in your head, right? But we're going up this, and once you got about, the first branches were 150, 180 feet. And then the branches then were in the Sitka spruce tree, were relatively close together. You could just go from limb to limb, right? Now the branches, and it was like, but anyway, I'm up there, we're climbing the canoe, and he's always putting this lanyard on. He's always putting it on. So much so, messing with his lanyard so much. We're taking a break, and I'm like, Knut, why do you always putting your lanyard on so much? And he looks at me, he goes, well, why not? I'm like, yeah, that's a pretty good point there, Knut. Why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
So now from what I tell people now, sometimes when you're doing things in this line of work, don't ask yourself, why would I do it? Ask yourself, why would you not do it? And if you can answer that, you might have an argument. But if you can't, then you probably don't have an argument. Right? So if you're looking at it and say you're tied into this tree and you're on a dead tree and you're like, I might not put my lanyard on because if it fails beneath me, I become rigging.
Mhm.
That's an argument.
Sure.
Not putting it on because it's not long enough, or it's in your way.
Yeah, it's gonna cost me a couple minutes, you know, or whatever, yeah.
So it's not why would you do it, it's why would you not?
Mm-hmm.
You can answer that, then maybe you have another.
I like that. That's good.
For me, it's always a mindset shift. That's the only thing that changed. You literally just changed it,
Oh, yeah.
but it's so powerful at the same time. And for even just hearing your ratchet strap story, perfect. Because based on your assessment, you're like, oh, it's not too bad. It's 2 inches in, you know, but not knowing inside, but you put the ratchet straps on. You know what I mean? So it's like that mindset. Like, you know what? I learned something because you learned from Glenn. Let me apply it. Because why not?
Yeah.
Right? And sure enough, as soon as you dropped it and it split into 7 different, you know,
And I'm
pieces.
pretty sure those straps didn't do anything. Would I change anything? Yeah, I'd put more on.
There you go. No, like,
Why not?
Why not? Yeah.
No, I love that.
I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so when you start to see, and that's I think that this work opens up when you start to shift perspectives like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's where a lot of people either don't know how to do it or fall short, don't try to do it, or aren't shown how to do it. And when you start to flip that perspective, then you can, you know, when you start to realize that I've never climbed the same tree twice, ever. I've climbed a lot of trees many times, but never the same tree twice. Right? Which is, you know, part of the beauty of the work, right? And the connection people feel with trees, and the, you know, the privilege you have to work on them. And like I've mentioned this a couple times on the podcast. I'm not a big meditator. Right? I can and I will for short stints, but I'm not a long term. I just get impatient. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm fine with it. But I never really felt the need to meditate when I was climbing trees full time. I never felt the need until I stopped climbing trees full time, and I realized the climb was the meditation. Right? I'm working on a team and I'm on a crew, but I'm up there and I'm up by myself, right? I'm not self-directed. What I do is, but I was by myself, right? And it was, and I, you know, the work itself was the meditation, right? What other job do you get doing that? It's the classic tree time. Like, how many times have you been up a tree and you're like, someone's like, hey, it's time for lunch. You're like, what the fuck are you talking about? I just got up here.
Yeah.
I'll be damned.
Yeah.
Last time I checked, it was 8:30.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I would shift it. It just made me think of something. It's like you're not by yourself. You're with yourself, right? You're not by yourself. Like there's people there, but up there,
Yeah, that's great.
you're with yourself. You're just like, you know.
And that's a great way to look at
You
it.
know.
I love that.
And I kind of miss that.
Yeah, man.
And then you look at all the other things that science now shows us, that trees emit pheromones and hormones that we breathe in. It's like, arboriculture's perfect, man.
Yeah.
You wake up in the morning, you get sunlight in your eyes, low-level sunlight, set your circadian rhythm.
Mm-hmm.
If you get exercise, like you just do,
Mhm.
like if you're doing your job right, if you eat well, right, go to bed well, and don't drink a six-pack before or after every trade, you'll be all right.
Mm-hmm.
Simple question. Books. Read books. The listeners. What books?
3 books.
One, that doesn't matter. Those,
You gotta get Dr. Shigo's Pithy Points.
okay.
Buy that one. Still available at shigoandassociates.com. I would probably pick up Fool's Progress by Edward Abbey. Probably my favorite novel. It's not autobiographical. He calls it an honest novel, so you just have to read it to figure it out. And then last but not least, what else would I throw in there? Meditations, Marcus
There
Aurelius.
you go. Nice. Love it.
Where else do you get a glimpse of the personal writings of the man who at his time was the most powerful human on earth?
See,
That's
great.
great.
Yeah. Next one, motorcycle. I saw him last time, so I don't have my bikes anymore, but I love motorcycles. You brought it up. I know that you brought it up. You brought it up in a way of it's an extension of you. So what kind of bike do you have, or what kind of bike do you wish you still have?
I currently, and still have, I've had it for 20-some years, is a BMW R1200C. It's a great bike, I love it. Although I don't ride as much now, and I'm okay with that. I think it's, 2 summers ago, I used to love the long solo rides. 2 summers ago, I rode down to South Carolina. And it was nice, but it just didn't hold the same allure for me that it used to.
You mean just how you feel? Is that what
Yeah,
you
just, well, physically and just mentally, it just wasn't what it was. So I think that chapter of my life might be closed.
Understood?
Still on the motorcycle, might eventually sell it.
Yeah.
I don't ride as much anymore.
Yeah.
But I did enjoy it when I was riding.
Yeah.
I think it's important, and I hear this a theme with you, which I really admire about you that I didn't know before, but it's a cool thing, and I'm into this too, like the seasons of life, like they're just, I mean, you know, I did a lot of training at one point, you know, and I was with this, you know, with the CAA and this and that, and it's like, you know, it came and when I did it for 20 years, and now I'm kind of like not into that phase, and I'm doing a little more speaking, and and I think we should honor that and be kind to ourselves through the process.
It's a hard learned lesson for me. It's something I wish I would have, like I said, as a young man, I would have learned how to let go.
Yeah.
I was never good at that.
Yeah.
I wish I had learned how to understand that you can start something and not have to be that for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
Like, I don't have to be an arborist the rest of my life. I'm not a production arborist anymore.
Yeah.
I chose not to be.
Yeah.
I planned.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
I don't identify myself as a motorcycle rider anymore. I just don't ride like I used to. I don't know if I'd ever identify myself that. It's like, I would never join a club. I rode a lot by myself because I like riding by myself.
Same.
Yeah, I found it meditative getting from A to B. I was probably an asshole to some people to come up, because my bike's a little bit unique. People are like, oh, that's a great bike, and they want to talk about it. I'm like, I don't want to talk. I just want to get a drink of water, take a piss, and then get back on the
Get back on the road, yeah.
Everybody come up and tell me all the bikes they rode, and I'm looking, it's like, dude, that looks like a Ford pickup truck to me. I'm not seeing a motorcycle.
Yeah.
I know, I'm an asshole.
There you go.
We all have to get in touch with our inner asshole once in a while.
I know, there's nothing wrong with it. I just, you know.
Well, studio actually cut us,
Yeah, that's right.
which is interesting. We're 3 hours in, but anyway,
Well, you gotta get a good 10 minutes out of it.
yeah. Don't cut it all
Yeah,
out.
you get a good 10 minutes out of Tony bullshit about shit.
I mean, look, the main thing is just great gratitude for you coming, making the trip down.
No problem.
You know, and the benefit is got to know you better, which is awesome. So now when I see you from across the field at a comp or an event or
I'd
whatever,
probably be like most people and go.
I'll avoid you.
Yeah.
Oh shoot, there's Tony.
Yeah.
Don't make eye contact.
Yeah. But no, man, in all seriousness, I gain a lot, man, from the conversation, from your insights. I love being able to take problems and just look at it literally from that other side. I think we all benefit from that as people, but also as arborists, whether it's a mechanical issue with a tree or life. So
Yeah.
Appreciate you
thank you
guys
so
having me. It
much
was
man,
fun.
for coming in, you know.
Absolutely. That's literally the same words, obviously, the same thing. Like I said, we knew each other a little bit, like just, you know, superficial. It's cool to dive in deeper, and then as we do other events, or maybe you're walking alone in the woods and I happen to see you,
There you go.
it's just like, hey, I want to be alone. You can be alone. But it's cool. It's really cool to dive deeper. I appreciate your time. I'm sure 100% of listeners are going to get a lot of gems out of this
Oh,
one.
man,
It was
big
really, you spoke some really eloquent, articulate things that I myself, on the ride home, is going to enjoy to ruminate on that. So I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yes, yes, sir.
Appreciate it.
All right, bro.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We're out.
All right.